Okay, good morning, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. Sorry, I lost my piece of paper. My name is Marla Billinghurst. I'll be chairing the meeting this morning. To my left is Mr. Neil Harden, and to my far left is Mr. Robert Upton. The assessors this morning are Mr. Merrick Froelich and Ms. Sharon Tang, and the recording secretary is Ms. Kelsey Harrison. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to these matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in or they can affirm. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record.
Would you like to swear in or?
I'll swear.
Could you please state your name?
Merrick Froelich.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Do you swear in or affirm? Do you please state your name? And do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. Do you swear in or affirm?
Bradford, South Fork Street.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first matter on the docket this morning is 1350 Pacific Avenue.
Okay. How would you like to proceed in terms of the cap rate information and with regards to the 5% non-recoverable story as well, or did you want us just to go through the brief first?
Same information for,
Well, because it will be all the way through, and so I'm just wondering which is the best way. I could go with it later on and do a sort of summation. I could go through my presentation for 1350 Pacific, go through it completely, and then I could make my comments with regards to our position on cap rate study and recoverable expenses.
maybe? It really doesn't matter. I think,
Okay.
gentlemen, you've all heard the cap rate study information.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
Both of you, yes.
It's just that every
And
decision.
the non-recoverable, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know, do you feel you want to hear it in detail again today, or
Well,
would a summary be
summary,
sufficient
yeah.
for both of you?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
And I'm not opposed to that. It's a little bit of a different circumstance this morning as we have two assessors here. And so ordinarily, when I put questions to an assessor, they apply to all the balance in properties. I don't know if that will be the case this morning or not.
In this circumstances, I'll be working with Sharon to answer a lot of questions that Sharon may not be able to answer. Sharon's done inspections of all the buildings. She created her own briefs, and so.
Yeah, and my comments were with respect to the department's capitalization rate information and the issue of dispute with respect to non-recoverable
And those
expenses.
questions you'd ask me.
And so whatever answers you're giving will just extend through the balance of the
Yeah,
property?
yeah.
Fair enough.
So perhaps why don't we just start with the first one?
Okay.
Do it with the first one?
Yep.
And then that'll
Good
just
plan.
apply to the rest?
Yep.
Does that work for everybody?
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. File number is 4766. Rule number is 130604633300. Property is 1350 Pacific Avenue. The owner is Her Majesty, the Queen, Province of Manitoba. Assessed value that we have for this property is $4,019,000. We have one premise. There's two different buildings. Buildings were built between 1998 and 2003. The wall heights range from 24 feet to 40 feet within the building. The land area is 131,014 square feet, and the leasable area is 35,059 square feet. And for this property, we'd like for the value to be confirmed. And just bear with me. I have my pictures from my other inspection yesterday in the wrong section. So what we have here is, if you look on page 2, we have an overview of the subject property. And all these properties, for whatever reason, I did not include all my pictures. So for location purposes, this is a picture on page 2, is a picture of what the building looks like, where you can see the differences between the 24 feet and the 40 feet. And the bottom of page 2 shows an overhead of the pictures. The 4 properties that I'm dealing with, that I dealt with 101 Weston, the 2 Pacific properties in Notre Dame, are all within a snowball throw of each other. They're literally right beside each other. So to the directly, so if you're looking at the bottom of page 2, directly to the west of this property would be 1390 Pacific. Right across the street from this is where Westport Foods would be. And right at the corner of Notre Dame and Weston would be where the Hydro Building is. So this is the general location of where this property is. And another dockets that we'll be reviewing today, you can see that. So what we have on page 3, and Mr. Borgstrom did the same thing that I did. Him and I both went to the website and we both looked at the overall building of what the building looks like. So what this building is, it's the Manitoba Production Center, Manitoba's only purpose-built movie production facility, which is over 15,000 square feet of clear span sound stage. So clear span, which is a huge, significant issue when it comes to dealing with industrial properties. Some of the amenities include for this, 2 floors of office space, 5 private offices, 6 rooms, 2-star dressing rooms fully outfitted with phone and internet, wardrobe space with change rooms, a dye room, a large cafeteria with fridge, stove, dishwasher, microwaves, phone system, 2 multi-purpose flex areas wired for both phone and internet, 4 exterior 18 above grade level docks, 5,000 square foot shop area with angle power, completely air conditioned, including main studio, fully monitored. So what's interesting about this property is that it's a high quality finish. It's not your standardized warehouse building. So on the bottom of page 3, you can see the floor plan of the layout of the building. And then it also shows the second floor and the mezz level. On top of page 4 shows the Manitoba Production Center of the layout. It's a 5-acre fenced compound relative to layout. The dimensions are listed there. As you can see, on the bottom of page 4, they have a cafeteria facility. This is a high-end building. This is not your standard office industrial building here. This is high-quality finish, open floor space, nice lights, large and flexible. It has 3,500 square feet of space, snack and beveraging. overhead view of the cafeteria space. I've never been in this building, but when we drove by, it was actually closed off and didn't seem to have a lot of activity in it when I drove by it yesterday. As you can see on page 5, there's the foyer area for it. And one of the dressing rooms. What I've been told, I spoke with Martin, who's in charge of the building for this. So a lot of times when they're doing movies within the city of Winnipeg, they'll end up using this space for movie production. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Page 6 shows the flex space in the mezz area. It's a nice building. Bottom of page 6 shows our facility for the diary room. Page 7 shows the green room, which is a central lounge area for relaxation purposes. They didn't show any pictures of the loading docks. They have office spaces, 5 private office spaces that are fully furnished. And if you're looking at the entire building, you could assume that the office spaces are of high quality finish. Page 8 shows the hair and makeup areas and the production areas. Page 9 shows some NES space and the shop area of 5,000 square feet, 200 amp 3-phase power service. And the studio has 15,000 square feet and a wardrobe area. So as you can see, this property is owner occupied by the province of Manitoba, fully owner occupied. There's no management or administration fees that are assigned to this type of building. So what we have here is, this is our workup. We have 35,059 square feet at $9.08. And overall, I believe that's very, very fair due to the nature of the building here. We're using a 6% vacancy for effective gross income of $299. We have a shortfall of $375, 2% for expenses, to come up with a net operating income of $285,463. Using a cap rate of 7.10%, because this is a newer building, we come up with a value of $4,019,000. So what I've done with my comparables, on the most part, is I've tried to take comparables that are a similar size. So the subject property is 35,000 square feet. I've got a range of properties from 25,000 square feet to 46,000 square feet. And I got a range from $7.75 to $11.70 on Barrie. The Barrie property is very unique and distinctive because there are different rents that are within this building. And so being mindful of the quality of finish of this building here, this building is not like a poor industrial building, which is warehouse space. This is high quality finish. And this is why I'm very comfortable with that $9 rent. But also to be considered here with regard to this is that I was playing around with the numbers and saying, okay, hypothetically speaking, we have $9 blended rate all in. If we did a breakdown between the office component and the industrial component, you could easily go with a split of around $11 or $7 for the industrial space, because this industrial space is a higher end quality, it could easily sustain $7 in the marketplace. So overall, I'm very comfortable with the value that we've had here. And that concludes my presentation with regards to the actual property per se. When it comes to the 2 theories that we have for the management, everyone is familiar with the process that we use here on a regular basis with regards to the income and expense mailers. We send this out every year in April. And this is an overview where all the annual expenses are listed in the earlier section. All the income and recoverables are on the right-hand side. Do you need to see this? Because this is a sort of standardized thing. Did you want a copy of this, Marla?
Were we provided with?
Yep. It's not in my brief, but it's It's standardized with regards to everything that we do from assessment and taxation. A lot of us included in our briefs.
Did you include it in your brief?
Well, what I did is this version of it.
Did you include any version of it?
Well, the computerized version of it is this right here.
What page is that, sorry?
That's on page 11.
Okay, so that's what you're referring to now?
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay,
So on page 11, it shows all the expenses that take place. Owner occupied building, it does not have any property management, professional fees in this building whatsoever, and it does list all the operating expenses. Similar to a homeowner owning a house, there's not a 5% management fee. If you're the owner of an industrial building, you're not paying a 5% management fee. You're not worried about advertising, you're not worried about tenants, you're not worried about vacancy losses, there are none. You don't have to worry about tenant improvements, you don't have to worry about inducements.
no, we get, so there's
Okay.
no argument about the 5% on
Exactly.
this property, so we
Yep.
don't have to address.
Okay.
Okay,
With regards to cap rate, it's been a lot, and a part of the Altus cap rate study consists of, and you've seen this before by various people, you probably saw it yesterday with regards to the slate management portfolio. In the Altus brief, they say that their revised cap rate study,
so is that gonna be your rebuttal?
this will, a part of our cap rate, how we derive our cap rate information.
Okay,
So it could be a part of rebuttal.
If that's the case, then I'm curious as to why he's referring to our evidence, which is not in front of
that's
you.
what I was
Okay,
wondering.
no problem.
Why is that coming up?
Okay.
Because we haven't seen Altus's presentation yet. Okay,
Fair-
so that's-
fair enough.
That's why I'm confused at
If
this
I might,
point.
on this property, there is no disagreement with respect to cap rate.
Okay, so
Okay.
let's wait and see,
Okay,
so.
no problem, I'm
No
just,
need to jump the gun yet, okay?
you're always in full mode here, okay? So there's no issue with regards to cap rate.
So how
You
about
have-
this, how about this?
Okay.
If you're done your presentation right now, why don't we let Mr. Bergstrom
You know
ask
what?
his questions and let's go in order.
Whatever works best for the board.
Okay, so,
Okay.
do you have questions of
I do have a few, but just for the record, it's Borgstrom.
Borgstrom? Oh, I'm
Yes.
so, I'm
No,
so
no,
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Borgstrom is very common, Borgstrom not so much, which is why there's a handful of us in Manitoba, so.
No, I appreciate that, because on the, on the information I had, it had a Tanis Free's name on it, so I didn't actually have the printing of your name anywhere.
Just like Bergstrom, but with an O.
Borgstrom, okay,
Thank you.
sorry about that, thank you.
It's always correct on the orders. It's all good.
It makes you feel better, and any better yesterday, I was called Bill and Cuff all day, so.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So I've listened to your information that you presented here, and you've gone over the layout of the building, with the layout that you show on your page 3 and 4. Do you know how large the cafeteria area is?
It's at 3,500 square feet on my brief.
Right, and would you consider that to be excessive for any tenant in an industrial building?
Well, how I look at it, because I'm sure, because of the nature of this building, the nature of the building, that it's used for a lot of facilities, and because it's used for a lot of different reasons, I'm sure they use this with regards to film production. So that's right, it provides them the flexibility. It's a nice quality space. There are situations where they use this to feed their staff when they're doing movies in this building. So if you have 100 people filming a movie, I think it's suitable for that.
Okay, and so let me take you back to the question that I asked. Okay. In a building that has a gross floor area of 35,000 square feet, without even considering office space, would you consider a cafeteria 3,500 square feet in size to be excessive?
Not for the needs of this building.
But in this particular case, we are actually projecting it to be offered on the market, correct? With a
Okay.
seller, willing buyer, yes?
Yep, and it's a higher quality finish. This is not a standardized industrial property, so it's unique by the quality of finish. So,
Let me ask you the question again. Is a cafeteria, and I'll get into the office in a moment, but a cafeteria that's roughly 10% the size of the gross floor area of this building, is that normal, what you'll find in an industrial building?
it's not normal for industrial building,
Thank
but
you.
for the uniqueness of this building, this is not a normal industrial building.
And so in cafeterias and lunchrooms and industrial properties that you've been in, you would typically expect to find microwaves, refrigerators, that's even sinks with running water, correct?
Yeah,
And so nothing unusual about that,
no, it says refrigerator, stove, built in, yeah.
but nothing unusual about that, right?
Nope, similar to you know, it's funny because yesterday we were at 101 Weston, and the quality of the space in that 101 Weston was similar to this in terms of presence and ambiance.
Okay, you know what, gentlemen, sorry. In the interest of time, because this is a larger docket today and we have a lot of material, how about this? Let's limit the questions and answers to specifically.
He asked the same question 3 times over again, and I answered it the same way 3 times over.
Yes, but if it's about size, let's answer size, not about
Okay,
finish, because finish didn't come up in his
Okay.
questions. We don't want to know.
Okay.
If we want to know, we'll ask.
Okay,
But it's just because I'm worried about how long we're going to be
Yeah.
here if we start, okay?
okay.
Got it?
Thank you.
Sorry.
And if we look at your picture on page 3, you'll see there that there are some makeup rooms, right?
Yep,
And a wardrobe room, correct? Yes?
yep,
What you refer to as a dye room, yes?
yep,
And the dye room has a washer and dryer, but other than that, pretty much open space.
yep.
And so would you consider that to be office finish or less than office finish?
So, I consider it to be good space. It's,
And so let me ask you the question again.
we could all see the pictures there, Mr. Brokstrom, you know, like it's evident that this is, you know, the dye room has lesser quality finish than what's potentially looks like a yoga studio room, like that's above there when I look at page 6. It's still, you know, open concept, decent lighting. To me, it's not concrete floors and walls.
Would you or do you consider, in your opinion, the level of finish to be equivalent to office space?
The dye room, no. Other aspects, yes.
Thank you. Do you know how much area that, the bathrooms and the dressing rooms and the makeup room?
I haven't been in this building, I'm just going by the floor plan.
Right, and so you don't know the area that is?
No, I do not.
Okay. So if we take a look at your page 9. The top picture is in your view that this is mezzanine space?
That's what I got off the website.
Okay, but this particular space that you're showing at the top of page 9, is that mezzanine space?
Yes, he answered.
What he said was he got it off the website, and I'm
Well-
just asking about it.
Yes,
Thank you. And the bottom picture is the shop area, and in terms of the mezzanine space and the shop area at the bottom, that would be more typical of industrial use, warehouse type of use for in industrial property? Okay. Let's take a look at your rental comparables on your page 13. Do you know, 801 Century was a property that was developed on the site of the former Emco building there, right?
Yep.
Right, yeah. And it was developed with a variety of uses, and there is flex warehouse, correct?
yes,
Including retail use, yes?
it's Manitoba Public Insurance. So the lease that I've quoted here is the Manitoba Public Insurance lease.
And do you know what the finish is in there? That's not one of their service centers, correct?
It used to be one of their service centers.
It wasn't, okay. So,
It was not.
do you know if it's a service center?
To me, 801 Century is one which is with the cross street in between Route 90 and right by Ellis. And to me,
801 Century is at the corner of Wellington and Century, correct?
is it Wellington and Century? I thought this was the one on Ellis. That's my comparable that I'm using.
Okay. And so, as we, in the interest of time, as we go through these different properties, would it be fair to say that you're not really sure what the finish is inside all of your rental comparables?
I haven't inspected them, the way I'm not.
Generally speaking, they would be 801 Century, for example, you've already agreed as a flex warehouse, correct?
All these are under the flex warehouse.
And subject property, if we look on your page 12, it is shown as a storage warehouse, correct?
Yes.
That would be.
You know, so, you know what, when it comes to these buildings, like I know 820 Barry has a variety of buildings here. 1680 Notre Dame is the location is a flex warehouse. There's a lot of similarities with these buildings, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to get rents that were in the neighborhood, that were close to the subject property.
So let me back up again to the question. The property is categorized by the department, as shown in your page 12, as a storage warehouse, right?
Yep.
Okay. And the rents you're showing at 820 Barry, you're suggesting that that's also a flex warehouse, if I understood your answer correctly?
No, I think that one there is an actual warehouse, like it's an SWH.
Okay. And in fact, that's a building that used to be once upon a time one of the large retailers' warehouse buildings.
Eaton's,
right?
yes.
Yeah. And so the space within there has been subdivided into much smaller spaces, generally speaking. Some have been fully fitted out, not as warehouse space, and some are fully wide open warehouse space with very little office.
Some of them are a parking garage.
Yes, and so is the parking garage one of your two rents?
No, that's a $2 rent. And the parking garage is not the same finish that the subject property is.
Okay, and so the two that you show on Berry Street here, if we look at your page 1, you're showing the building was built in 1998 with a 2003 addition, correct? And so can you describe the degree of comparability to a 1963 building, bottom two rents, and 1964?
Well, like I had stated, I want to get buildings that were storage warehouses that were in the neighborhood. There's, the West End, and there's not a lot of buildings that were built there are some, but I'm looking at a range here. So under the circumstances, I'm trying to get something that's comparable in size and a comparable rent, so.
Now, you just said that you were looking for storage warehouse rents, but you've already conceded that certainly your first one is a flex warehouse, yes?
Well, the first one is, when I looked at the address, the first one, I thought it was the MPIC one on Ellis, so that was my mistake.
So let me take you back again to the question. The 801 Century you've already acknowledged as a flex warehouse, yes?
Yes. Well, I don't know the building, so I can't,
So you're not sure?
I'm not sure.
Those are my questions, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Upton?
Yeah, I have trouble with the classification, this is an industrial warehouse, but anyway. Your model, that's a model rent 908, eh?
That is correct.
Model rent. And you derive that from your,
From all the
Oh, yeah.
properties that were built, you know,
In the-
near 2000, you know, so, yes.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harden.
Okay, so that 908 then covers, it's just one rate for everything, mezzanine,
Exactly.
cafeteria,
Yep.
loading dock, whatever. Okay, and standard vacancy loss,
It's 6% for the neighborhood.
for that's based on the neighborhood?
That's in the neighborhood, yeah. So like say, for example, when we're dealing with Northwest Inkster, that was 2.5. When we're doing with the Southwest Quadrant, that's 2.5. Because it's an inner city location where there's a lot of older stock, the vacancy is higher based on our analysis.
Okay. All right, and the cap rate then would be, because it's a relatively newer building, especially in that area?
Yep, exactly, that's why the cap rate's higher. So if this building was in the Southwest Quadrant, it'd be 6%.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I have no questions, so please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. So I'm going to take not very much time as I go through this brief in terms of our non-recoverable expense study. I will touch on just the highlights of it. The capitalization rate study, I believe until, I guess, the next property, because there is no disagreement here on this property. And so I will go through this relatively quickly in this particular case. So if we start at our page 3, we go through a little bit of a description of the physical improvements in terms of these buildings. There was in fact a 1,685 square foot rigid steel warehouse with 40-foot wall height built in 1998, and a 14,434 square foot rigid steel frame addition, 24-foot wall height added in 2003. Now, 24-foot wall height is not, in my view, inadequate in terms of modern expectations, but it is at the lower end of what the market typically expects. Gives you about 20-foot clear height inside. The studio area, it is in fact used as a film production studio space. I don't know if even the assessors are aware, this property was actually appealed in the name of the Manitoba Centennial Center Corporation as tenant. That's the Centennial Concert Hall and related holdings for that. And so they don't actually produce movies, they actually provide this to film companies when movie companies come into town and do a shoot. So we have a film production studio space with about 15,000 square foot in size. It also has an office in the rear, 5,000 square foot shop area. So the studio is about 100 by 150 by 100 feet by 150 feet with clear span, which means that they can utilize the entire area. It has a reinforced concrete floor and 2 400 amp 3-phase electrical services. The entire building is climate controlled, and that's obviously arising from the need for the movie production use inside. The addition houses a 3,500 square foot cafeteria, and you'll recall that I questioned the assessor. A 3,500 square foot cafeteria, the other finished areas aside, is completely, if we were doing this on a cost approach, I would describe that as a super adequacy. You would not find anything of that size. Most of the time it isn't used at all. It is only utilized when they are actually utilizing the facility to shoot a film and actually have catering come in, and it's a place for them to eat. I'm not going to get into wild stories, but I golf with a couple of guys, more than a couple now, that actually appear in films shot locally, and so I'm quite familiar with what goes on, not just in this location, but in other locations as they go through movie shoots. Above the offices, in both sections, are 3,750 square foot of mezzanine offices, or what I would consider to be mezzanine-like office space. Land to building ratio, it sits on about 131,000 square feet of land, and which gives you a land building ratio of about 4.18 to 1. That's within the range of what you would typically expect for industrial properties. So, while we will adjust where it is low, there is no need to do that in this case. I took a look at a number of rental properties. I have provided, as we go through today's docket, I have provided the assessor with the identification of each of those rental comparables where they are whited out. 1725 St. James Street, I had the opportunity to inspect this property earlier this year with a different assessor. It's actually, I believe, 5 distinct buildings on this site. It's newer flex space, varying degrees of finish in there. Some have significant office space. But even there, where you have a nice building, relatively new, well located, built in 1999, you'll see there, and let me just back up for a moment. When I was looking for rental comparables, I filtered our database by size and by age. And so this is not a selective list, but it's what we have for those sorts of ages and sizes. So even, you know, and 1725 St. James Street is actually that large, it's newer flex warehouse development right at the corner of Notre Dame and St. James Street. It's very large in nature, but the individual leases within that space, you'll see there, and they range between $7 and $7.95 a square foot. You'll see there $7.75 a square foot. That was a rent step effective January 1st of 2018. And you'll see other rent steps there as well. Camille Sis is actually in the St. Boniface Industrial Park. This was a built-to-suit building for FedEx. It's a AAA tenant in this lease, and this is based on the stepped-up rent as of November of 2015. 1725 Inkster is another multi-tenant building at $475 a square foot, built in 1990. 200 Discovery Place, that's up in the Innsbruck area, built in 2014, and even something that new only rents for $9.95 a square foot. The property on Bannister and Bates is out at $850 and $740. We have another property up on Innsbruck near the Discovery Place there property at $675 a square foot with a step April 1st of 2014. So based on all of that, I selected a rent of $7.75 a square foot for the main floor area. Our standard practice, and it is, I haven't actually done an analysis this cycle. It has been past practice of the city to apply a lower rate to the mezzanine space. What you end up with when you have mezzanine space is lower ceiling height in both spaces, and so less utility. So we apply, typically we apply a half rate. I rounded it to $4 a square foot. Overall, the blended rate is $7.35 per square foot, main floor and mezzanine area. We do not disagree on vacancy or shortfall. With respect to the non-recoverable expenses, the things that I want to highlight, as I go through this very briefly, is that it is not an expense relating to the management of the property. It is the expenses related to the normal operation of any property, but they are expenses which are non-recoverable. Leasing commissions, sometimes there are banking charges in there. These are expenses that are not charged back to tenants, but are operational expenses related to the ownership and operation of any property, whether it be industrial, commercial, retail, office. And so our study, we show, and I know you've all seen it, we show a number of examples in here. Some years it will be very low, some years it will be very high. Overall, we consider 7% be the right number to apply to non-recoverable operating expenses related to each property. That is the basis on which our capitalization rates are calculated. And so if we are to depart from that, our capitalization rates will go up by about 40 basis points. So our request, in this case, 7.1%, is based on the 7% expense allowance. If that's disallowed, then the package would necessarily be bumped up. So I'll limit my comments to that for now. But it does include things like legal and audit fees, advertising and promotion, expenses associated with vacant space, which is partially shortfall, partially not, depending on the actual vacancy within a property at a given time. As I indicated, the capitalization rate, we are in agreement with the city's 7.1% for this property. And so we go through our mathematics on page 9. Again, utilizing $7.35 per square foot blended plan area.
Oh, excuse me, sorry.
Plan area, mezzanine area, so we apply that to the gross floor areas. Vacancy rate at 6%, 7% non-recoverable expenses, 7.1% cap rate. We're looking for reduction to $3,061,000. The information I included on the back, I'll leave you to go through at your leisure, but we actually attached some subject property photographs there on page 12, and you'll see there the open space, the spiral staircase to the some of the upper mezzanine space. It's a little unusual to find a mezzanine or spiral staircase. There you see the open web steel deck to the steel web to the decking, roof decking. See there an upper shot down to the cafeteria area. You'll see the loading doors there on the bottom of page 13. And the description, we've actually included the entire or some of the web pages from this particular facility's descriptions. And the city's calculation of the income summary on page 17 and 18. And I believe that that is the information we wanted to cover here.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Fuller, questions?
Yeah, on 1725 St. James, are there other leases in place that are of similar square footage that are at a higher rent?
Okay, so I'm not sure what you mean by similar, but when I ran my filter,
Yeah.
these are the rents that remain.
Okay. Because I have one here, which, and your filter was, okay.
If you want to provide rebuttal evidence, I'm happy to look at it.
Okay, no problem. Do you have the lease in place for 560 Camille Systems?
Camille Sis?
Yeah, at 791. Do you have it here?
I do not. That was actually at one time a city rental comparable. We subsequently now do work for the new owner, and that is as I understand it, the recorded rent.
Okay.
It was escalated.
What was that shown, because our income and expense mailer shows 1225 for that very same property.
Not on a net basis.
Well, it's a built-to-suit property, so,
I'm telling you that that's the rent that we have within our records based on the income and expense questionnaires.
yeah. And based on our records, they're showing 1225 net
Again,
rent.
I'm happy to look at your rebuttal evidence,
Well, this is your evidence here, and I'm questioning you on it, so it's,
and I'm telling you that that's the rate that we have within our records.
Okay.
If you have something to rebut that, I'm
Okay.
happy to look at it.
okay. But, so it's just your word versus our word in terms of the departments. Because for other hearings that I've had that. 1725 Inkster, is that the midpoint of rents, or is that the low point of rents at 725 Inkster?
I'm just making a note of it to make sure we verify that.
Okay. I could send you the mailer, Mr. Borgstrom.
Well, quite certainly have it. Okay, and for Sorry, for which address?
So for 1725, your outlier rent here is $4.75.
Well, again, that's what populated when I searched.
Okay. Because,
We've also got one at 995, but I've also included that, and so there will always be a range of rents.
okay, yeah, because I have a listing here asking for $6.95 for a rent, for what they're looking for.
But you and I both know that an asking rent is
Yep.
not a agreed-to rent.
Yep, I understand that, but the point is, to me, that seems abnormally low for a building in that area at $4 a square foot. That doesn't seem to have that quality finish. That seems to be an outlier.
I'm not sure of your question there.
Okay, well, again, I think it's been asked and answered, and
Yep.
let's move on to your next question.
And your rent on Innsbruck at 111 Innsbruck, is that a lower rent or is that a higher rent for comparable properties in the neighborhood?
Innsbruck?
Yep, 111 Innsbruck, that was built in 2000.
Well, I mean, within Discovery Place, Meridian Drive, Innsbruck, there will always be a range of rents in there,
Okay,
but this is what populated from my search.
okay. And at 1725 Inkster Boulevard, do you know if they receive their management fee as recoverables on your rent?
I do not know.
Okay. Yeah, I have the mailer here, and it shows that, I'm under oath, it just shows that it is a full recoverable expense.
And so the net rent that we are showing is a net rent.
Yeah,
But as with every other building, there will be non-recoverable expenses associated
Okay.
with that building.
okay. And so you had stated tenant improvements and leasing incentives as being reasons for, to include the management fee, correct?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
I made no reference whatsoever to tenant improvements. And I did also clearly state that the non-recoverable expenses are not related to management of the property.
Okay.
They are non-recoverable expenses related to the normal operation of the property.
I am pretty sure you said tenant improvements and leasing commissions in your presentation,
Well, let me just,
in your verbal presentation.
yeah, so let me,
Okay, well, I think you've clarified now.
yeah.
Let's,
It does not, for tenant improvements. Here, let me just take you to that section within our study. And so if we look at page 9, you'll see there, that our study of selected non-recoverable expenses for operating statements for 2015, 16, and 17.
Yep.
Our leasing commissions, professional fees. Asset management fee is different than a property management fee. Most properties don't have an asset management fee, some do, as well as advertising and marketing. And you'll see there on the next page where we show those, but it is not, let me reemphasize that, not for tenant improvements or tenant inducements.
But in your briefs that show here, as indicated the first, but in your brief that you show, you include, when I'm looking at page 13, you're including leasing commissions, professional fees, like when I'm looking at,
Page 13?
well, it starts off at 10-1.
Okay, yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that
Yep.
I'm on the page, so, yeah, okay.
You know, it talks about expenses include leasing commissions, marketing, advertising, professional and consulting fees.
And so nowhere on there will you see the words tenant improvements.
Okay, but you are aware that there are many board orders when we're looking at,
Well, and so let me be absolutely clear. We do not include tenant improvements in our calculations of the non-recoverable expenses.
but you do include leasing commissions.
Yes.
Yes. And at the municipal board, have they stated that leasing commissions are not included in determining net effective rents?
And that's not what we're doing here. We are not including these to determine a net effective rent, but they are expenses, non-recoverable expenses related to the normal operation of any property.
But usually those are recoverables that are listed on our income and expense mailers that are recovered from it. Because when you're looking at, because it's a broad definition and with regards to the management fees, it encompasses a lot of different aspects. And so leasing commissions would be a part of the management fees to get that.
They are not. And when you look at your income expense questionnaire, it's a very separate and distinct categories.
And med space. You've used a $4 rent for that. By the pictures that are provided in my brief, does that look like standard med space, or does that look like full functioning office space or space that would derive a higher rent?
Mezzanine space in an industrial property can take a number of forms, including fully finished office space. And in fact, we were in a property yesterday that had exactly that on the third floor. Sorry, that's another inspection, I stand corrected. And so it can be fully finished office space, it can be used for or as part of a warehouse storage area. It can be used, years ago in the Palliser warehouse in Kernahan, they used much of their mezzanine space within a significant amount of space in that as a display area for their
But that, see,
retailers. And so the type of space varies greatly, but you, as I went through in our evidence in principle, as soon as you put a mezzanine in, you now have a loss of utility. You don't have that full clear ceiling anymore. You now have a loss of utility, so you've got half the height, give or take, underneath it, and half the height above it. And so we could certainly adjust the rent on the main floor space for the underneath loss of utility. I think ultimately the formula that we've applied here, which is what we've been doing for a number of cycles now, to apply a half rate to mezzanine areas, we flex appropriately the loss of utility of that area.
but depending upon the building per se, because there's a misconception out there saying that mez space should be a bit lower value than second floor space. The ceilings are still fully functional. You're still dealing with the area
You have half the height.
on,
Where you have a mezzanine area,
yep.
the underneath space does not have the full ceiling height, so you either exclude entirely the mezzanine area from the calculation of the rentable area, or you recognize that loss of utility.
But when we're looking at the utility of the space, you've stated yourself in our last hearing that anything over 32 feet is an over improvement. In our hearing that we had last week, you had stated that anything
Okay,
over.
I'm not listening to evidence that
Okay.
came up in a previous hearing.
Okay.
I don't want to hear that. We're dealing
Okay.
with what's happening here. I think all of us are familiar with the argument about mezzanine space. We've
Okay.
heard it before. We understand the concept of ceiling.
Okay.
Okay, so
So.
we understand your side of this. We understand your side of this.
Okay. No other questions, it's just fundamentally looking at the space from the pictures provided us. In our opinion, it doesn't dignify a $4 rent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Upton, questions?
I don't have any right now, thank you.
Mr. Harden?
No questions that haven't been asked and answered multiple times.
Yeah, that's covered it pretty well.
Me as well. Okay. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to assume that we are done covering the non-recoverable expense issue?
You know what, there are, see, what's interesting about as
As I
we,
know.
well, the only reason I say that, Mr. Bergstrom, is that we have situations where in some briefs, when we have recoverable expenses for management, where it's totally matches completely, it's just that it's not very, they're not easy to read sometimes because of the poor quality of finish that we get from the income and expense mailers. There are other situations, like 1725 Inkster, where it clearly shows that the management fees are 100% recoverable. So we have some examples that show that the management fee is being fully recovered.
Okay, so how about this? If something specific
Yeah.
comes up, we'll deal with it on a
Yep,
specific basis like that. Okay? Does that work for everybody?
yep.
Okay. Okay, the next property is 1315 Notre Dame. I have a note, there was a wreck on this.
Yeah,
Were you aware of that?
Well, I am aware of it from the assessor's brief, but we are a significant difference.
Okay, so it's not an accepted and we're going to go ahead. Okay.
Actually, and the rec that is actually lower now than after I looked at it again, and I started with Mr. Bergstrom about this. It's just that, bear with me.
I'm not aware of any other than what's on his brief.
Yeah.
Okay, do we want to take a quick recess?
Well,
Or we-
I just need to find it here. Yeah, so the new rent that ends up coming to existence is 17,823,000. And there were two significant errors that we came across during the evaluation of this property. Is that what we had done is,
Oh, yeah. sorry.
is
You
okay.
can read it.
Can I just, yeah, we'll go through I'll start from the
Yeah.
beginning here. File number is 193141. Roll number is 13-06046-4000. The building in question is 1315 Notre Dame Avenue. The owner is Manitoba Hydroelectrical Board. Property is also owner occupied. And my recommended value is 17,928,823. There are two components of this recommendation that have taken place. The original aspect of this building was listed as an OFB, and if I show you the picture of, if you look on page 2, we had it listed as an OFB, so we're looking at a large building in the suburban area. The total square footage that we have for the two building is 225,204 square feet. In our opinion, this is not an OFB. When we look at the classifications of OFB, this building is not an average to good building finish. You know, it's prominently located in the downtown area, 3 stories or more. Well, this is a 2-story building in the suburbs. I thought about changing it to an OFC to show that it was an older building of poor quality, but once again, not in the downtown area, not 3 or more stories. So when I looked at the valuation for this, I changed this aspect of the income stream to an OFS. And so when the OFS took into place, that ended up changing the cap rate, that ended up changing the rent. And so, which is why I came up with the new value of 17,823,000. So it's pucked as an inventory warehouse, but there's 2 income streams here. So there's an OFS and a warehouse. There's 7 different buildings here, and they vary from 1 to 2 story. The ages of the building are from 1950 to 1996. We have a land area of 844,191, and we have a leasable area of 225,204. Page 2 shows, I have not inspected this building. Page 2 shows pictures of what it looks from the outside, and views from Notre Dame, views from Pacific, an overhead view. So if you look directly, like in the middle portion of page 3, we had just looked at 1350 Pacific Avenue. That's 1350 Pacific in the middle portion of that building, and 1390 Pacific, which we'll be hearing later on, is directly to the west. Page 4 shows some more overhead pictures of it, how it encompasses Notre Dame, Weston, and the backside of Pacific. And if you look at the most northern part of the top of page 3, you'll see the other two buildings that I talked about. And page 4 shows that as well. Page 5 shows some of the office space that's listed in the brief from the office's 2018 brief, and some other pictures that are listed here. There's also an indoor garage listed, and just different pictures on page 8 as well. Once again, page 9 shows us what they send us in terms of income expense mailer. They have been in compliance, shows that it's fully owner occupied, and shows their expenses that they have listed here. There is no management fee listed for this property. And going through, they got professional fees, insurance, maintenance, building supplies, office, hydro venting, and it shows their expenses that they have on page 9. There's a sworn value of 31,276, but I don't know the details of that. That took place in 2003. I am guessing that is when, I think maybe potentially that was when the city of Winnipeg, when Hydro bought it from the city of Winnipeg in 2003. Not too sure. Page 11 shows the initial value that we had, showing that the OFB portion and the storage warehouse portion of it, and how we had the 19,325,000. And on page 12 shows my new workup for the OFS portion. So what we have here is we have 73,513 square feet and $9.76. Using a 5.5% vacancy, we have effective gross income of $678,025. Expenses at 2%, a shortfall of 7, comes up with a net operating income of $736,161. What I've done here for this portion of the building here is, because it's a larger office space, I actually gave it a bit of a higher cap rate as well, because I'm mindful of this is an older building and in the neighborhood and whatnot. So this was an adjustment that I had made based on our parameters. What we do in office properties is, when we're dealing with OFS properties, if it's greater than 70,000 square feet, we put a premium on the cap rate. So that portion of the building worked out to $6.69 million, $6,690,000. So the warehouse portion has the following. All these leasable areas totaling 151,691 square feet. What I've done with my manual adjustment is, see the space here at 10,188 square feet? When I was doing my research for the building, that's unheated space. Clearly shows on the field form. I took a look at it. So when I made my amended recommendation, I changed that to $2.50.
Which one?
It's PID number 18881, 10,188 square feet. So yesterday, when I told Brad I'd made an additional adjustment, so I changed that rent to $2.50, and I have copies of that here. What we've done for, so we have a total So my revised potential net rent is $1,039,593. Using a 6% vacancy, my effective gross income is $977,217.
217?
$217.
Okay, thank you.
If I'm going too fast, let me know, because you don't have this on paper, so that's why. So 2% for expenses, shortfall at 375, comes up with a net operating income of 923,543. Using a 8.3% cap rate for this portion of the building, it comes up to 11,127,000. So what I've done here is I've just shown comparables of OFS properties. You know, some of them are older, some of them are newer. I think the rent that we're using for the OFS of $976 is very reasonable, based on the parameters. Yeah. So what I did here is for my warehouse comparables here, I also took properties that were in the neighborhood. I tried to, because of the uniqueness of this building here, a lot of these buildings are separated, they're individual, like we stated before, there's 7 different buildings here. So I tried to get older buildings with a variety of ages here, and I tried to get some rents that were supportive of rents that were in the neighborhood. So right now, our new blended rent works out to $685. And what I have here is I have rents that are within that range, from $527 and to $775. Page 18 showed my original workup, my original revised workout before, that was before taking out the unheated space.
But 685 blended, is that the storage warehouse?
That is a storage warehouse, yeah. Because even though I haven't been in the building, it's Manitoba Hydro, I'm assuming that it's well maintained and good quality finish. Or even though it's older, I'm assuming that it's in decent shape. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Thank you. So your, if I understand what you've done correctly, your recommendation is based on a change of the office space from what was OFB to now OFS?
That is correct.
Okay. And if we look at our picture you show on page 3 at the bottom, the office area is actually located at the west end of the site at 1315 Notre Dame, correct?
Yep.
And that's a single building, so it's a combination of office and warehouse area, correct?
I haven't been in the building, so what we've done is that I do not know, I would have to double check. Because I don't know the layouts of each individual. I've never inspected this building,
No, I know
so
what
I
you're saying.
can't answer that.
Okay, fair enough. And so, OFS, generally speaking,
Yep.
it incorporates most of the office space outside of the downtown area, correct?
Yeah, it encompasses all building quality grades.
Yeah.
All office buildings predominantly outside the downtown area. Mostly 1 or 2 story buildings, may include buildings over 2 stories, but generally speaking, that's how we categorize OFS.
Thank you. And generally speaking, OFS development outside of downtown is newer than 1963, right?
Well, there's older OFS buildings that are in established neighborhoods down Main
Vast.
Street, down Henderson Street.
Would you agree that the vast majority of OFS space outside the downtown area is newer than 1963?
Yes. And it's reflected in the rent.
Okay. Now, in your experience, would you, or is it your opinion that basement space or offices would rent for less than main or upper floor space?
It would be.
Okay, so let's take a look at the subject office area. You're aware, are you not, that the office area has basement under it?
Mr. Borgstrom, I wanted an inspection of this building,
No,
so
and
I do not know.
and I
You're asking me
appreciate that.
questions that I can't answer.
Right. So let's come at this another way. You had a chance to review our submission from 2018.
Yes.
And in that submission, it did show the basement area under the office, correct? Just as it does today, yes?
Yeah, I don't know what section of that building is, and then I also don't know if, when we're looking at the components of this building here, with the footprint of it, you're probably in a better position to answer it than I am. Is the OFS portion, how big is the main floor section of 1315? I'd have to double check your brief.
Okay. So, but you've already acknowledged that a basement rent would be less than main floor or upper floor, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you've made an adjustment for the unheated space. You show it as 10,188 square feet. Our records indicate 10,224 square feet, so we're close. And you're applying 250 a square foot
Yeah.
to the unheated? Okay. And I appreciate the adjustment. It's awkward and it's a little nebulous. And so for the balance of the space, you've got buildings built between 1950 originally, correct?
Yeah.
And 1996, right?
Yep.
And as we look at the picture on your page 3, there are actually, let's call it 1, 2, 3, 4, let's call it 5 buildings, and one of them with an addition, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And the one shown as dead storage there, that's the unheated space, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the building at 1350 Notre Dame, that was the one built in 1963?
I'm assuming so just by looking at the exterior.
Okay. Did you have a chance to review the department's field forms on this?
The field forms?
Or the paper trail rather than,
You know what, I didn't get the opportunity just because of time constraints.
fair enough. You'll also agree with me, will you not, that by and large, the wall height within this property, save and except the 1996 edition, is 20 foot or less?
I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Upton.
None right now, thank you.
Mr. Hurd?
Okay, let me just look at the office. Okay, using the office as one rent. And the warehouse areas are they in different buildings?
Yep. So they're the rest of the complex, so when they looked at my brief, it's just, you know, and Mr. Borgstrom's pictures, actually has a bit more than I do.
Yeah, but your 685 then overall rent is is being dragged down by the 250.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I was looking at one of the rents here, at like the 696, when I matched so if you look at the storage warehouse rent that we have of 6,175, that is for the newer building.
This is the new one?
So I'll show you.
So that's 26,887.
Yep, 2687. That was the building that was built in 1996.
Okay, can you give an overall rent for the standard warehouse portion? Did you work that out?
Well, yeah, so the new blended rent all in worked out to 685.
Well, I know it blended, but taking out that 250 for the unheated area, which is unusual.
Yeah,
Do you know what the blended warehouse rate
yeah.
you're using was?
Yeah, my colleague here will figure that out for me.
Sorry, I apologize for yelling. It sounded, I got a little ears, it sounded a lot like Mike Colatrulio to me.
Sorry. No. It's a bit different though, Sharon, because what happens is, let me just take this out.
Because I just want to get that figure to
Yep.
compare with your.
Yep, no problem, I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Hart. Ooh.
$737, give or take.
I had 733.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Those
did a
are-
really quick calculation.
Because we're close.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have no questions, so please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to take a few minutes here and just go over the physical aspects of this property. I can tell you that I did this appeal before this board last cycle, so I have some familiarity with it. And I'm going to take you firstly to our page 15. And that's a larger picture of the site overall, and the assessor's quite correct. When you look at the two buildings, two different rule numbers actually, in the top west end, north side, those are actually 1390 and 1350 Notre Dame. So Pacific Avenue, the warehouse, the dead storage, everything that's labeled there with a little pin drop, that's all within the site of the hydro property. And you can see there from the picture, and we do have some ground shots as well, but you can see there that the wall height, generally speaking, aside from the garage addition, are all relatively low, and I'll demonstrate that to you in more detail in a moment. But starting at page 16, you'll see some pictures there. The bottom picture is the warehouse area at 1350 Notre Dame. This is a single building, some of it office and some of it warehouse. And you'll see some of the office finish on page 17 and following. You'll see there on page 18, the warehouse space, you'll see that it is relatively low wall height and low clear ceiling height when you consider the ductwork and the piping in there. Page 19 is some additional space within the same structure. And the bottom of page 19 shows you the side view of 1350 Notre Dame looking towards the southwest, if you will, on that building. And And I'm gonna get you to keep flipping back and forward at your convenience, but only for your reference to page 15, which will give you sort of a bearing, if you will, of the buildings that we're talking about here. And so 1311 Notre Dame, this is an indoor garage and fleet management, and you'll see there again, low wall height, concrete construction. Page 21, you'll see some desk areas, open cubicle within the warehouse areas, some office space in there. And you see there on page 22 some more of the same building. Page 23 shows you the garage addition, and that is the high wall height addition that we were referring to earlier. That is the newest structure on the property, and I'll go through the various ages in a moment from the city's own summary. But that gives you a perspective of the indoor garage on the top picture on the right-hand side and the new addition. So you can see a very distinct difference in the wall height, and certainly in the clear ceiling height. And on page 24, you'll see the interior of this garage addition. You'll see there the lifts, which are used for servicing idle vehicles at this location. Page 25 is the Pacific Avenue warehouse, and you'll see that that is adjacent to the Centennial Center warehouse that we just talked about. It's directly east of that. Again, you'll see on page 25, low clear ceiling height. You have fluorescent lighting in there. Not the type of finish that you would expect to find in a more modern industrial property. Page 26, you see some of the office space in there. And page 27, similarly, you'll see some office space in there, but it's primarily open table, open desk, not even divided by cubicles by and large. The warehouse on page 28, you'll see there that's a 1985 vintage. The dead storage building, that's the unheated space that the assessor has adjusted his rent on. And so as we look at our page 30, you'll see there, and you'll recall that I asked the assessor about the wall heights in this building. This actually is from the city's own website. And so you can actually obtain the details of these various components. And you'll see there that they range almost exclusively between 13 and 18 feet. So there's one on page 31, that's 24,000 square feet with a 20-foot wall height. That gives you a less than 20-foot clear ceiling on the inside. And then you'll see the steel Class A steel frame addition built in 1996. It's only 6175 square feet out of all of the building area in here. That's the one with the 36-foot wall height. Everything else on this property is older industrial in nature. It is not going to attract in the open market rents that you would expect to find in newer properties with different physical characteristics that the market now expects. If we take a look at page 33, this is actually it's usually one large page, but it's the subsequent page as you print it out from the city's income summary. This is also from the city's website, and you'll see there on page 33 in building number 3, 10,421 square feet of basement area. That's the office space that the assessor described. And you recall when I asked the assessor, he acknowledged that basement space would rent for more than main floor or upper floor space. So in fact, this is a 2-story building, and you'll see there that that's confirmed. So 2150 of mezzanine space there. The main area, 80,520, some of which is office, some of which is warehouse space, and we've looked at the pictures of that space, but also the basement area of 10,421 square feet. So we've gone through the pictures, we've gone through the description. So ultimately, on page 3, I summarize the building within the office warehouse building that was built. If you look at the upper chart, you'll see there that building, 1315 Notre Dame, was built in 1958 originally. Has a gross floor area of 112,481 square feet. That includes the mezzanine and the basement area. And so we detail that in the chart below. and break it down for you in terms of basement area, main floor office, mezzanine office, and then main floor warehouse area. So we total up the 11241 square feet, and of that, you've got 10,421 square feet of basement space, and then about 63,000 main floor and upper floor office space. As I did last cycle, I consider this to be OFC office space, and I take exactly the same approach this time, considering the appropriate rent to apply to a 1958 office area. My view of government-owned space is somewhat different than the assessor. Hydro, other governments, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, do maintain their space, but they do not have a high-quality, high-level finish. It's more basic government institutional type of finish. You're not gonna find, typically, won't find executive finish in their spaces. That's certainly the case in this property here. So while I certainly agree that it's well-maintained, it's aging, and it is in a location that certainly isn't prime for office space, or for warehouse space. It also has challenges of its own. So we took a look at the rent that we applied, or what we should apply to the office area. The city originally applied $928, and I appreciate the assessor has adjusted that somewhat. We took a look at a number of rental comparables for office finish, and there you'll see 14 Fultz. This is a much newer building, 2005, and that's even that one as an office is only $10.50 per square foot.
What page are you on? Oh,
I'm
page
sorry,
8.
on our page 8.
Page 8,
Yeah, I'm
okay.
skipping ahead pretty quickly, sorry. I'm trying to go fast. The Donald Street properties, as the assessor will be aware, are at 207 Donalds. That is a 3-story building in the downtown area, right at the corner of St. Mary and Donald on the northeast corner, if I recall correctly. And there you'll see rents in there. Those rental comparables have an average of $11.15, a median of $11.08. Given the attributes, the location, the age of the subject property, I've applied a rate of $9 per square foot for the main floor space and for the upper floor space. The basement area, I've applied a lower rent at $5 a square foot. Overall, when you blend the rate, works out to $8.43 a square foot, and that's the rate I'm suggesting that this would apply for the office space in this property.
Can you repeat those again, please? $9 main floor,
Yeah, and $5 in the basement.
$5 basement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly in this location and this age of the building, when you look at the rental comparables, it could be less than that, but it's what I've utilized. The department suggested 9.5 for OFB, and I appreciate the assessors going OFS at 9.5. OFC office space utilizes a 10.5 vacancy rate. We show the supporting documentation for that, pages 34 and following. I'm not going to go over it. That's just the valuation of income producing properties, provided that in support of the city's vacancy rates and shortfall rates for various types of properties, including the OFS. We've used the OFC shortfall rate at $8.50 a square foot, non-recovered expenses for the reasons we've already described, 7% total. The department originally applied a 6.75 cap rate. We've gone with 7.75. And I think that the assessor has suggested actually something higher than that in his revised calculation. But overall, and we'll go over the mathematics in a moment, we think that those are the appropriate rates to apply. Again, the city has changed their market rents overall, and so I won't go over that. We've looked at, again, a number of rental comparables, by and large, newer than the areas that you'll see within the subject property. average of 527, a median of 525. We've gone with 525 a square foot in this location, recognizing the age and the physical characteristics, and we've applied that to the heated space. And you'll see below that, we've applied a rate of $2 a square foot. The assessors suggested $2.50. When you blend those two rates, you come up with $5.03 per square foot overall. And you'll recall as we went through the physical characteristics on our page 30 and 31, this is older in nature. It has by and large low wall height, certainly low clear ceiling height. Vacancy rate, we're agreeing with the 6% applied by the city. Shortfall for the warehouse area should be $375 a square foot. Non-recovered expenses, again, at 7%, and we are accepting the 8.3% cap rate applied by the city again. And so we go through the mathematics, including the shortfall rate at $375 on page 12. We've broken it down into OFC and the storage warehouse category. Based on all of that, our request for this board is an assessment reduced to $13,438,000. And I think that is the information we want to cover for this property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for the applicant?
Yeah, for sure. So why did you use an OFC instead of an OFS?
OFC, I actually looked at this quite closely last cycle, and it's what I applied last cycle.
Okay, but an OFS, the better
OFS.
representation of the building?
Well, certainly, no, OFS, certainly in reviewing, and I looked at them last cycle, right? So certainly in looking at OFS rents, OFS buildings by and large are newer in nature and certainly much newer than 1958.
Okay. Was it advantageous that the shortfall in vacancy rates were higher using an OFC versus an OFS?
Not necessarily. Again, like, it just, OFS is 5.5, but again, that's generally speaking, I suspect because those are newer properties. And I also note that you yourself have adjusted that in terms of,
No, 5.5 is what I've used for OFSs.
yeah, fair enough. And a 9.5 cap, so you know what, this is 2 stories plus a basement, and in my view is just not an OFS, doesn't fall within that class.
But it would be according to the definitions that we have here, that encompasses a wide variety of building grades.
As
and
I
it's up
said,
and down
this
too.
is exactly the same approach I applied last time.
Okay. On page 23, in your brief, is that the building that was built in 1985 on the top portion of it? Because it looks pretty new and modern to me.
No, that might well be the 1996 edition.
Well, the 96 edition is
6175
61,735.
square feet. Let me have a look at this, at the overhead.
Or would that be the,
Yeah, no, that's about 60, yeah, that's about right, 1996. It's about the right size. If you look at page, or the page 15, and overheads, that's about the right size.
okay. But wouldn't that vintage building, like, to me, is that a vehicle service garage?
Well, if you look at, again, at the pictures, this falls under the garage edition, 1311, so 23, and you turn over to page 24, you'll see there the interior.
Yeah. So usually most vehicle service garages that were newer built, or they have a rent a lot higher than 525?
Well, we're talking about 6,100 square feet, total.
So which,
So
okay.
let me just
Okay.
look it up and finish the answer. So you've got a total of 150, more than 151,000 square feet of storage warehouse area on this property.
Okay.
And you're talking here about 6175 square feet, non-material difference.
Okay.
I certainly could have applied a lower rent to the 1958 warehouse, but we applied an overall blended rate.
Okay. So which is building 5 and building 6? Because those were built in 1985 and 1980. And I think we're gonna be all over map here with looking.
Well, when you look at the top picture of Pacific Avenue,
Yep.
that to me, I believe that that is a newer vintage building.
Okay.
Okay.
And that
And
has,
it looks like it was built in 2 sections to me.
and would those buildings have a higher rent than 525?
Well, let me just answer that again, in that we have applied an overall rent, so
Yep.
if we were going to use an individual rent for each of these spaces, that's not typically the approach we take. Additionally, it's the amount of office space in those different segments that you're talking about. For example, the garage, the 1995 or 6 edition, you would also need to consider what office finish, whether or not they have office finish. If they don't have office finish in there, then you would likely apply a lower rent than similarly aged properties, so there would be a number of adjustments also necessary. We have used, as I said, an overall blended rate.
And the 2018 appeal for, that you had on this property, did you take that to the municipal board?
No, I don't know. I also don't recall what the assessment was.
Okay, fair enough. No other questions?
Thank you. Mr. Upton, any questions?
Yes, on the, on your page 8 on the office space, you come up with $5 and $9.
Yeah.
And that's based on your comparables above?
Well, 5 for the basement, recognizing
Yeah,
that
5 for the
base.
basement,
Yeah,
yeah.
recognizing the basement, and I agree with the assessor on that, that basement rents will be lower than main and upper floor, and so we've gone,
So you just chose a number of $5?
yeah.
There's no evidence to,
It's going to be very nearly impossible to find actual basement rents in a 1958 building.
but they're about approximately half the rent of the upper floor.
Yeah.
But the median, and you chose an upper floor rental of $9,
Yeah.
and your median is 1108 on your comparables.
And as you look at the ages of these properties, you've got a couple that have effective ages quite a bit newer. The Donald Street location for numbers 4, 5, and 6 is, in my view, much superior to this location on Notre Dame. Similarly, the Gary Street location would be considered superior to this, and so there needs to be a recognition of the differences in location as well as age.
So you just applied your overview of those factors and come up with the $9?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, on the, just on the warehouse, your median was 525, you come up with 503, which is close to your median of your comparables.
503 includes the unheated warehouse space at $2 a square foot.
Yeah.
Right.
525 on, you used the median of your comparables to arrive at the 525.
Well, as it turns out mathematically, yes, but that wasn't, I typically don't utilize a median or an average. What is the market telling me? I usually throw out the outliers and what's the range telling me based on the characteristics of any individual property. I'll make a judgment and provide my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Harden?
No questions.
No questions. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break. All right, we're going to call the meeting back to order. Okay, the next matter is 1390 Pacific Avenue.
File number is 19-342-30. Roll number is 13-06046-3200. Orders of Her Majesty the Queen of the Province. 2020, the assessed value we have is $6,205,000. One building. We have built in 1995. We have a land area of 154,997 square feet, and we have a leasable area of 51,100. I'm asking for the assessment to be confirmed. There is a pending 2018 municipal board appeal. In 2018, the value was just under $7 million, and it was cut to $5.2 million at the 2018 appeal. What I have here is, I did have the opportunity to inspect this property yesterday. On page 2 shows the main entrance that Brad and I went through yesterday on the top of page 2. And at the bottom of page 2, there's also a customer service entrance for people to pick up tickets on the other side. Similar to the other pictures that I had, this is the location on the top of page 3 of where it's located at. It's directly north of the Hydro building. With Brad's approval, Brad has pictures in his brief, but I have some additional pictures here as well that I'd like to show. Is that okay, Brad? From our inspection yesterday.
Yeah, you know what, pictures don't bother me one way or the other.
Okay. So what we'll do is instruct it.
Yep.
And pass this over.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to continue on with just the pictures on page 4. These are some pictures from Altus's brief in 2018. Just gives an overview of what they have on page 5 and page 6. And when things are copied and photocopied over again, it's sort of unique. So I'm leaving up on page 7 here. Okay, and now I'm just going to go through what Brad and I experienced when we inspected the property yesterday. Now I'm just looking at my pictures. So first page is just the main foyer area for visitors that come into the building. This is where Brad and I signed in. As you can see, it's a very appealing front counter area for the building. I'm turning the page over. It shows the stairway to the second floor. There's also a full elevator in this building. We didn't see it, but it's in our records.
I saw it.
Did you see it? I didn't see it, okay.
Took a picture of it on the second floor.
Oh, really? I missed it.
Okay.
Isn't that it?
Isn't that it on the
Yes,
Yeah,
first page?
yes.
you know what? Yeah. I just thought it was a sort of like a door for a cubby area or anything like that, right? I apologize. So on the bottom of my second page, this shows the premium office within the building. The rest of the office is like this. And then on the next page over here, this is like standardized office that they have here in the boardroom area. I am now looking at the second floor print area. So this is on the second floor, standard office space. This is their little area that they do their photocopying. I think there's a counter there and whatnot. Now we're looking at the main floor storage area. So this is one of the fences, as you can tell, good lighting, nice and clean space. Right now I'm just looking at another example of some of the storage space on here. You know. We got pictures of the utility areas. You have the receiving area. Yeah, currently they're only set up for one receiving door right now, not two, because they ended up putting up some new, I think HVAC equipment, and now they only have one utility door on this side. And right now I'm looking at the second lobby area. So right here, I mentioned that there were two lobby areas. There's one for the businesses, like for Brad and I to come in, and the second lobby area is for the vendors. So that's where the vendors would pick up all their lottery tickets and whatnot. That's what the Hector told us in the inspection. So this is where they pick up stuff. The main floor area does have office space. Here's one example of it. And there's also a main floor lunchroom area. You know, clean, good lights, TV, vending machine, all the basic kitchen utilities that you would need. I also thought this was really neat. So right now I'm looking at the simulated casino trading area. So when they train staff to work at the casino, they actually have that, and that's a part of the main floor. And also there's utility space on the main floor with the laundry area and whatnot. There's laundry equipment and the uniform room that they have for hemming. So that concludes the pictures of this. And what I like about pictures, it really gives you a good indication of what the space looks like. So what we have here is we have the floor plans for this building. And so Brad and I talked about the floor plans, about what percentage of this building is office, what percentage of this building is office space for storage warehouse. So those are the two pictures that we have in place here, and my pictures sort of give you a general overview of it. Once again, they have been compliant with regards to income expense mailers. All these properties are owner occupied, so there's no property management or administration fees that are listed. There was a sale for this property in October 6th of 2003 of $2,650,000. And what we have here is page 10 shows how we have it listed. So we have a storage warehouse. We have one rent rate of $7.59 a square foot at $6,500. So potential rent is $494,109 with 6% vacancy to be indicative of the area. To come up with an effective gross income of $464 or $462. Using 2% expense ratio, shortfall of $375, we come up with a net operating income of $440,725. Using a cap rate of 7.1%, we come up with $6,205,000. So when I looked at that, I was saying, okay, and this is sort of like the interesting dynamic here, because I had asked Brad this question. I was just trying to figure out what would the rent be if we broke down the spaces between the warehouse aspect of it and the office space of it. Because when we looked at the Hydro building, I used a rent of $9.28 for the building here, because I felt it's an older building, older stock. I haven't been in it, but looking at it, I believe that the quality of finish of this building is superior to the Hydro building. It's a newer built. The original building was built in 1963. This building was built in 1985. So what I did here is, because of my office background, and the reason why I do this is because when I looked at the Grain Exchange is an older office tower building, lots of floors, but a part of those buildings are very storage area related, and some of them are office. So when we do the income workups for those buildings, we have a difference between a storage rent, a storage rate, and an office space. So what I've done here, I have this, did you want to see this, Brad? This is my workup.
This is gonna be new evidence.
Okay, well, I'm just speaking of it, but to talk about it. But essentially what it boils down to is, when I did my office background here, I looked at this building, 45,100 square feet is The store,
Wait a minute, are you objecting to this?
Well, I've never seen it before and I've never heard it before.
I've explained,
And so, I'm not quite sure what value it has.
on many occasions, many agents provide verbal evidence, and they just speak. I'm doing the same
And
thing.
you would have the opportunity to object
Yep.
if you wanted to.
Well, if that was the case, then we'd be objecting to the entire hearings, because a lot of agents don't provide much information. So I think during the inspection, let me just finish this train of thought, I'll make it quick. The storage warehouse has one rate, the office has another rate. I used $6.30 for the warehouse, $10.50 for the office space, using a 25% ratio for the office, 75% for the office. I came up with an identical value. On page 11, shows some comparables in the neighborhood. So what I've done here is I've shown comparables that are of, that are of similar age, the one here is 1961. But I tried to take rents that were close to the subject property in terms of size, and I got a range of rents there from $6 to $8, with our blended rate of $7.59 being very fair based on the overall condition of the building.
Okay,
On page 12 and 13, show the board decisions with regards to the municipal board appeals. And that concludes my presentation.
okay, thank you. Any questions for the assessor?
I do have a few things here.
Please go ahead.
You indicated that your page 11 shows comparables in the neighborhood.
What I said comparables, I meant to say, my main focus was similar to you, using a filter. Subject property, 65,000 square feet.
So to be clear, it's fair to say that most of these are not in the neighborhood.
Well, 58 Hutchings is not very far away from the subject
It's
property.
in Inkster Industrial Park, is it
Yeah.
not?
1680 Notre Dame.
You said, so let's stop you there. 58 Hutchings, go through one at a time. 58 Hutchings is in Inkster Industrial Park. You said that that area carries a different vacancy rate because it's a different area, correct?
That is correct.
And so different than the subject neighborhood, yes?
Yes.
Omens Creek is on the other side of the airport, right? It's
It's
west of the airport.
It's west central Winnipeg, Mr. Borgstrom. We don't have,
And again, a different neighborhood, right?
I would disagree with that.
Okay. Kernahan is in Transcona,
Yes, definitely different.
and so that's a different neighborhood?
Yeah.
But as you look, but you've selected these because you think they represent what rent the property should bring in the market, correct?
Well, without having pictures of, without doing inspections of those, my primary focus was the subject property, 65,000 square feet. I got a range here from 53,000 square feet to 63,000 square feet, so that's a pretty good range.
And so you've included these rents in support of the rate that should be applied to the subject property, correct?
As a sample, but I believe that that the department's well positioned to justify the value that we have here today.
As we look at your 5 rental comparables here, isn't it true that all of the rental comparables, save one, are lower than the model rent applied?
Yeah, but we have higher ones here as well.
You have one higher one.
Yeah,
Yes?
Yeah,
The one higher one is in Transcona, correct?
that is correct.
Does the model differentiate between government occupied spaces and quote-unquote public occupied spaces?
No, it doesn't, but we look at the marketplace to establish what's a fair market rent.
I understand, and in terms of the approach that the city's model use it, isn't it true that in particular for industrial properties, by and large, the model does not separate out differential rates for office and warehouse space?
No, but
It's not true?
the city does not do that.
The city does not do that.
Does not do that, but when I'm looking at the valuation of the property, I believe you should differentiate rents with regards to the quality of finish and what the space is being utilized for.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Upton.
Yes, you,
I have one more question.
Oh.
I'll get to it later. Go ahead, please.
I think you mentioned that there, you had a division between office space and storage space?
Yep.
And what was that percentage between?
Roughly 75% warehouse
Storage-
space.
Storage or
Yeah, warehouse.
Yeah.
And 15% and 25%
Office.
office.
And you said in your verbal evidence.
Maybe actually a touch more than that. It's probably closer to, between 25 and 30%.
Okay. Now, in your verbal evidence, you referred to a rate for those two that you
Yep.
used, and what were those
I use 630
for a warehouse?
for the warehouse
Yeah.
and 1050 based for the office component.
Okay. And the office component, so the blended was $759?
Yep.
Roughly? Okay, thank you.
I have no
No
questions.
questions? I have no questions.
I just have one other question. In the pictures, and you didn't number the pages, but in the pictures you provided the board arising from our inspection yesterday.
Yep.
If we turn to the second page, at the bottom, that's what you refer to as one of the nicer offices in there, correct?
Yeah, that was a premium office. Yep.
And do you recall the comment, you recall that we inspected the property with Mr. Myra?
Yeah, this was the original office space.
Yes.
That was
Preceding their occupancy of this property in 2003,
Yes.
And so this is not refinished, this was existing at the time?
Yep.
Okay. And just one more thing, as we look at your page 1,
on my brief.
no, the pictures that you've provided subsequent, you'd agree with me that this is not a particularly efficient use of finished space?
I consider this part of the office to be an office space. So when I go into an office, most of them have a nice receiving area for their staff or for other people to come into the building. It gives great ambience, great curb appeal. It gives a feeling here, so that's why I feel justified in using a higher rent than a standard warehouse rent for this.
Let me take you back to the question that was asked again.
I don't
Is it-
believe it's an inefficient use of space.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions that have arisen?
No.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead.
So we took a very similar approach here as we did for previous properties. This building has a plan area of 6,000 square feet. It has a reported mezzanine area of 5,100 square feet, and so we have applied a differential rate for the mezzanine area, which is actually some of the office space. There's a office space on the upper level as well, and so we've applied differential rates. It's a newer building built in '95. Wall height is reported as 24 feet. While that's at the lower end of expectations, there's no need to adjust for that in my view necessarily. Land building ratio is 2.58 to 1. It's a little on the low side, but again, not awful in terms of what it actually offers. And so we took a look at the market, we do that on our page 7. And we show a number of different rental rates, and again, I've gone based on size, up to St. James Street, Hutchings Street, Hutchings Mountain, in Inkster Industrial Park. The land debates are in St. Boniface. And so and Furniture Park is actually in East Kelowna. That's a lease by Palliser to an arm's length tenant in that location. We took a look at what those rents were actually at. We don't differentiate in our approach between office and warehouse. If you separated out the office space, you would then have to figure out a market rent for the warehouse space without any office space, and it would be much lower than what you would see in these rents. All of these rents reflect some presence of office space adequate to the tenant's needs, and so we looked at those. You'll see that some of them are stepped rents. Again, the assessor is aware of all the dates. These are newer properties. We chose $6.75 a square foot as an appropriate rent for the main floor space. And just getting back to Mr. Upton's earlier question, I don't go with medians or averages, and I haven't done that here. I looked at the property. $6.75 a square foot is what I thought the main floor should go for. Again, because of the lack of utility arising from mezzanine space, when you look at the underneath space and the above space, we've applied a rate about 1/2 of the $6.75 for the mezz space of 5,100 square feet. We end up with a blended rent overall $6.50 per square foot. We are in agreement with vacancy and shortfall, and again, non-recoverable expenses at 7%. We do not, again, disagree with cap rate in this case. We'll go through the mathematics on page 9. And we're looking for a reduction to $5 million now. The assessor pointed out, and I guess I'm aware of it now, that there was a pending appeal at the municipal board. Our view is that that's not relevant to these proceedings. Our client has filed an appeal, and we are of the view that the decision in this appeal should be made on the evidence presented to you today. So we also include some information at the back, including pictures from the previous inspection. These are not from my previous inspection of the property, they were done by somebody else. We show again the details of the property on pages 18 and following. These are again from the city's website. Even based on the assessor's rent comparable, $7.59 a square foot is just not supportable in the market, and so we're looking for a reduction based on all of that to $5 million rounded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, do you have questions for the applicant?
Yeah. Are there a lot of second floor office space going at $3.50 a square foot?
It's not second floor office space, it's the rate applied, that we've applied to mezzanine space. We haven't adjusted for the space underneath that space, which would have a much a lower level of utility. We haven't adjusted that warehouse space rent, and so we've applied an overall rent, and this is consistent with the approach that we've used for a number of cycles now.
But all aspects of buildings don't need to have a full 24 feet office wall height, because
We're not talking about office, so underneath we're talking about warehouse.
underneath the second floor space, I believe the ceilings are 12 feet.
That's possible.
Well, the wall height is 24 feet, and I never felt encumbered during our inspection. So to say that we should value second floor office space at less than half of your value is not indicative of what a market rent would be.
So whether and so aside from the fact that there wasn't a question in there, let me just.
I asked you about the quality of the finish.
So let me reiterate that if the office space is on the main floor and the upper floor is unfinished warehouse space, we would apply the same half rate. We've applied an overall rate to the entire building, office and warehouse space. This office space would not rent separately on the market. It's incorporated in part of the building as a whole. It's how the city's model valued it. And so whether the mezzanine space is finished as office or is warehouse storage, we apply a rate of about 1/2 of the overall rate for the plan area.
But you have no comparable rents of similar properties at $3.50 to support that. Because the
Okay, so that
aspect-
was your question.
Okay.
Let him answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The rents that we show are the rents that are achieved in the market. We have made those adjustments based on certainly our past practice, and I didn't bring them with me, but I can certainly tell you that this board has agreed with that approach on many previous occasions.
Could you tell me who the tenant is at 170 Furniture Park?
You know, I ordinarily print them off and bring them with me. I don't have them here, and I was just looking.
Yeah.
I believe that that's, Hunter Wire.
Okay, because the square foot area that they have from the 2015 mailer is 137,000 square
Okay,
feet.
so I can tell you that I actually, last cycle, asked for the information on those properties from Palliser, and they sent me the actual lease details, including the lease agreements. And so I can tell you that the information that we're showing here is accurate.
Okay, so wouldn't that be inconsistent information than what they give us?
I don't have an answer for
Okay.
that,
How
but
would he know?
I don't, well, I'm just, but we based our model, we
But that-
get into this argument whereby.
Okay, but
So-
I mean, guys, come on.
Yeah, so the inconsistent information clause within the act that you're referring to refers to inconsistent information for the property in appeal.
Yeah.
That's not the case here.
Yeah.
If you had a question about that lease, I certainly provided you with the identification of the addresses. I'd have been happy to address any discrepancies you may have had to help clarify that for you, but I'm quite comfortable that this is the accurate information.
Okay. So just bear with me here for 1 sec. Are you familiar with the building at 58 Hutchings?
I am not actually.
No. So, the rent that you've used there is $625. Yeah, the rent that we have listed on the mailer is $675, so.
Well, I can tell you that the source of our information, and I don't know where the 675 comes from. Again, if you have rebuttal information that you want to introduce, I'm happy to look at it. But our information comes from two sources, certainly this early in the cycle. One is the actual income and expense mailers for each property. The second source of information will be the city's rents provided during previous hearings. So the property on Hutchings is one or the other, and without the information here, I'm not sure what the source is, but those would be the two
I
sources.
can provide it for your review here.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. There you go.
But 675 is actually consistent with what we're suggesting for the main floor space.
There you go. I have 3 copies. That's what I can find right now. Just bear with me. Here, that.
Wait.
Here.
This works for us
As
to look
rebuttal
at it.
evidence, I have no objection.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Here you go, Mr.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, do you object to it or no?
No.
Okay.
And then can I just do
Okay.
one?
Yeah.
So I can tell you right off the top from looking at this, this is not a property that we would have done. This is Stevenson Management.
Okay.
So the source would have been the city providing this as a rental control.
Okay. Because when I look at the rent here at January, the information seems the same. The lease from January 14th on your brief to December 18th at $625, but this clearly states $675. Correct? Everything else matches, square footage matches.
Yeah, what it doesn't show is whether or not it's an escalation, but I would agree that on the December 31st, 2017 rent roll, that it does show $675 per square foot.
Okay. Could we look at the this page here on the brief here as well. Are we looking at this? So it's like income statement from Stevenson Management. Okay. Here we got the management recovery, because a lot of times the others don't show this as clearly. Here we have management recovery of $10,051. And then we got management fees and asset management fees, sort of close to the $10,000 that we're seeking. So when we talk about the 5%, here's an example whereby the 5% management fee is being fully recovered by the tenant.
So is there a question in there?
What does that
I
have to
ju-
do
I-
with this property we're discussing?
Well, it's a rent.
Yeah,
It's
we
a rent
understand.
that
We
shows
understand.
what's happening in the marketplace, which justifies our position. No other questions?
And so,
Okay.
in response to the, let's call it a question, certainly the professional fees would be non-recoverable, and again, our study looked at 15, 16, and 17, this is a single year snapshot, and I don't know what the other years show for this property, so.
I'm under oath, I wouldn't be making this stuff.
Okay, Mr. Upton, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Harden?
No question.
Okay. Oh, yes, so that's for you. Where was it? Okay, next up is 1090 Wall Street.
Roll of the drums.
Yeah. Please proceed.
File number is 193223. Row number is 1301-1458200. Address is 1090 Wall Street. Assessed value for 2020 is $905,000. Parcel use is INWWH warehouse. Year built was 1962. Wall height is 17 feet. Zoning is for manufacturing light. Land area is 24,996 square feet. Leasable area is 12,980 square feet. The second page is the picture of the subject property, and the second picture shows the location of the property, which is between Wellington and Sargent. The next page is the income and expense mailer for the subject property. Page 3 is the general information for the income and expense, and page 4 is the information for the tenant. Page 5 shows the sales information on the property. One was in 2000 and one was in 2002. And page 6 is the comparables for the subject property, which we can see that the rent ranges from $4.53 per square foot to $6.89 per square foot. And page 7 is the picture of the comparables in relation to the subject property. And page 8 is the workup from the city's perspective. We apply $6.07 per square foot for a total of 12,980 square feet, which is a total of $78,789 for the potential rent. And we apply 6% vacancy rate, 2% expenses, and $3.75 per square foot for the shortfall, which makes it $69,660 $69,660 for the net operating income, Then we applied for a 7.7% for the cap rate, which is about 905,000 for the assessed value. Page 9 is just a breakdown of the value. And page 12 is the picture of the subject property. So the first page is the entrance area that shows the overhang door. Page 13 is the I guess the production area and the storage area. And page 14 shows the mezzanine area. And page 15 shows the second floor area, which is the lab. And page 16 shows the exterior of the property. Page 17 shows the information of the tenant, which we can see that is the owner of the business is the same owner as the building. So this one is not an arm's length between the tenants and the owner. So that's wrap up my presentation for property.
You finished? You have to start again because you used the wrong kind of map. This one has blue
Oh.
lines. I'm joking. Good job.
Cool.
Sorry.
That is.
Questions?
I do have a few, thank you.
No, you did a good job. The look on your face was proud.
I'm a little slow.
Oh, you were like, what?
So let's start on your page 6. And here I have provided, let me start at the beginning. You're here supporting the model rate that's been applied for rent, yes?
Yes.
And cap rate and all the other parameters, everything is model driven, yes?
Yes.
So if we take a look at your rental comparables on page 6, this is classified as a storage warehouse, correct?
Which one?
Subject property, so it's an SWH, yes?
Yes.
And so your rental comparables, you are showing in support of the model rate, yes?
Yes.
Okay. None of them are in the West End area, is that accurate?
Well, I would say the sergeant
Did
is,
you? Okay, so.
Sergeant is in the
let me
West
just
End.
back up for a minute. Did you select these rental comparables?
Yes.
Okay. And so none of these comparables are in the West End area, similar to the subject, correct? We can go
yes,
through them.
yep. Because Eagle Drive is an older building. See, Eagle Drive is in the
We're talking
northwest
here
quadrant.
about location at the moment.
They're if I look at 1, 2, 3,
Eagle Drive runs
4.
off of Route 90, correct?
4 of the properties are in the northwest quadrant of the city of
I
Winnipeg.
understand that, but we're talking here about the West End, which has already been described as a different neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
And so none of these properties are located in the West End, right?
No.
Can you explain to me how, 1, 2, 3, if we go with the fourth one down, how a property at 771 Main Street has any degree of comparability to the subject being built in 1927 in its location?
Well, actually, it's, if anything, this property is very comparable to the property because 771 Main Street is right on Sutherland and Main Street. It is a recycling, it's an old industrial warehouse type property. It's almost it's actually very indicative because the heart of the north end is probably inferior to the subject property than the west end. So that's a perfect example, Brad, thank you.
And so, Ms. Tang, in your review of the rents, were there no rental comparables in the West End?
Not I can find,
None that you could find?
no.
We certainly have some on the docket today, don't we?
Well, when I pull up the information, I guess I would just choose from whatever the system will pull up.
And so when we look in terms of West End rents, you'd agree with me that we do have rents today from the West End, yes?
The main focus that Sharon was looking at was looking at properties that were older in effective year built and were very close to the subject property in terms of lease. So what we have here is we have a leasable area of 13,000 square feet or just under 13,000 square feet. The range that we have here is from 10,000 to 20,000 square feet. So factoring the effective year built and the leased area where Sharon put a priority on, she felt comfortable with regards to the comparables that she's used.
So maybe she could answer the question in terms of her comfort in selecting those comparables?
We looked at these together, I think.
Okay.
Is that a fair comment to make sure?
Fair enough. Okay, thank you. So let's turn to your capitalization rates for a moment. And in this case, we do have a difference of opinion. So if we take a look at page 10, this is the table that certainly in recent cycles, the city shows where they report the model capitalization rates. Yes?
I'm sorry, could you
The
repeat?
table on page 10,
Right?
this is the table that the city provides over the last several cycles, certainly, where they show in part the model capitalization rates.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, and so if we take a look, and in fact, the model capitalization rates are based on actual incomes derived from each property, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, they are generated from hypothetical model rents, yes?
But what we do is as a template, we've had this question many times before. We look at the actual sales that take place, and then we take that information and we put that into the model.
And if we take a look at your second paragraph from the top on page 10,
Yep.
it says for the 2020 general assessment, capitalization rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income, so not real incomes, correct?
No, but
The
what
model-
feeds into the model are actuals, Mr. Borgstrom.
But we're not talking about capitalization rate extractions here, correct? These are model
We're
rates.
looking at the information that takes place in the marketplace, and we put that into the model.
You'll agree that it says derived from model-generated estimates of net
Yep.
operating income? And it goes on to say that the sale prices were time adjusted, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now, it applies, or the capitalization rates that the model generates are based on all sales for industrial properties?
I wouldn't say all sales because we weed some sales out.
You weed out the non-arm's length sales?
Exactly.
The bankruptcy sales?
Yep.
Okay, but it would certainly include vacant properties, yes?
Yeah, it's funny because we had this discussion in another hearing. So what we do is when we look at vacant properties, we'll look at when the property became vacated and then what it sold. We look at the income that was happening just prior to when it
No,
vacated.
let me keep you on the table here for the model-generated estimates of net operating income.
You asked me if we considered vacated properties.
So included in those sales are vacant properties, correct?
That is correct.
And so also included in those sales are owner-occupied properties, correct?
Yes.
And so owner-occupied properties don't generate a rent,
Nope.
neither do vacant properties, correct?
But if you look at the history of the property prior to becoming vacated, you could do a capitalization study from that.
But that's not what was done here in generating model rents.
Not for general rate of model, but
So let's take a look again at the table on page 18. Now, I'm gonna pause for a moment and just ask the board whether or not they've seen our rebuttal evidence with respect to this information from the city.
Yeah, we've seen it.
No, not you, I'm asking the
Oh.
panel. So I'm not quite sure how much detail to go into on it.
Seen it, have you guys?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've seen it.
And so I will only ask a couple of questions, and then I will, for the record, present our rebuttal evidence on it. You'll agree with me that 90 Park Lane was vacant at time of sale?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so it wasn't generating any income, correct?
Prior to its vacancy, it was generating an income.
At time of sale, it was not generating income, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And in fact, 1100 Waverly is a mixed-use property, yes?
Yes.
And yesterday during our inspection of 1390 Pacific, you'll recall that I very specifically asked the question of Mr. Mira regarding that space, and he, some of the space in 1100, that the space occupied by lotteries, liquor and lotteries, was in fact finished office space in this property. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that. I based
Sure.
my inspection on the pictures that I provided and my valuation of it.
Those are my questions, thank you. One more question, sorry. You'll agree with me that all other things being equal, that economies of scale typically would apply, correct? A larger space, all other things being equal, would rent for a lower rate per square foot than a smaller space, yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you've chosen a cap rate of 7.7,
Yep.
which is the top end of the scale for your, on page 10 of the single tenant industrial. It's the 80th percentile of 7.8, you're taking 7.7.
Yeah.
And this is a building that was built in 1962.
Yep.
So is there not, in your calculation of cap rates, there is a section to do with age, of course.
Yep.
And is that, would this be at the lower end of the,
Well, this would definitely be at the lower, lower or higher. It's a higher cap rate. So we're using 7.7. Our 80th percentile is 7.8. So it is at the higher end
okay,
of the
so
cap
the
rate.
age is what is indicative of the cap rate here?
Yeah, so, and what we're looking at, it is on a major thoroughfare throughout the West End. 180 Wall Street is a high traffic, it is desirable. If you're looking at the location is right across, in between Sargent and Wellington. Lots of traffic right beside the, the Cindy class and the rec center and swimming pool. So I think it's a superior location to, say, a property in Clifton.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Holden.
Okay, on your page 3, shows the rent income there. You're saying that's not a arm's length rent?
No, it's not.
So it's owner operated? Is this a book rent or?
The owner of the property is the same owner as the business itself.
Okay, so the same owner, all right. Thank you.
And if I might, I can certainly include in our evidence, this is the first that I'm aware of it, based on the information that the assessor has provided. I would be in agreement that this is a hold co, lease co circumstance, and we should disregard that lease rate.
Thank you. Okay, please proceed.
Prior to starting, I am going to just hand these out with respect to the assessor's capitalization rates.
Thank you.
This simply verifies, and I know that you've seen it before, this simply verifies that their first sale on Park Lane, the tenant was relocated by the owner, or by the vendor. Prior to sale, it was vacant, as indicated in all of the information in here, vacant at time of sale, not generating income, is not a cap rate extraction. Secondly, 1100 Waverly is a mixed-use property. The assessor took the time to pull the sales verification form. I have reviewed it. They have added the terms office and warehouse to that the sales verification questionnaire. And you'll see there that within that space, we have itemized a number of spaces in there that are clearly not warehouse space. So when we exclude those two from the city's evidence, we're left with those two actual cap rate extractions offered by the city at 7.44 and 8% respectively. So, turning to our evidence, unless there were some questions from the city on the report.
Well, yeah, how does Colliers quantify 1100 Waverly Street as a property in their mailer?
That's not within our evidence, and I haven't looked at it, but I can tell you that I've looked at the sales verification questionnaire, and I've looked at the rent roll at the time of sale, and this is very clearly not what you would describe as a standard industrial property. It's a hybrid.
Yep. Which is, so did Colliers call it, yes or no, an industrial type property in their
Well, as I
mailer?
indicated, that I don't know, it's not within our evidence, but
Okay.
what I did testify to is that I reviewed the sales verification form sent back to you from either the vendor or the purchaser, and I don't know which off the top of my head, and the rent roll at the time of sale. And it's very clear to me from reviewing that information that it isn't solely an industrial property.
So are you saying that you've never been exposed to it?
Exposed
The
to-
Colliers report on the 1100 sale?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. So if you're doing a cap rate study, would you not use a three-year stabilization to derive a cap rate?
No,
No?
that's not our approach.
Yeah. So, looking at the history of it, so are you saying that the city made a mistake by using a cap rate on the sale? Looking at the history of the property at 90 Park Lane and deriving a cap rate?
Well, I don't know that that's the city's approach. They haven't provided the workup. And secondly, we all know from appraisal theory, including the very first course, which is Busy 330, that you need to extract your cap rates in exactly the same way that you apply them. And so our approach, and I don't, if the city has done that in the case of your capitalization rate comparables, you have then extracted them in a manner differently than you were applying them in your model. And so that would be an error. Our capitalization rates are extracted on the basis of calculating rents, deducting vacancies, non-recoverables, shortfall, and that's how our capitalization rates, the same methodology that we apply in valuing properties through direct capitalization on an income approach.
So are you implying that we made this information up, or we didn't look at the 3-year history prior to it becoming vacated?
That's not what I said. What I said was I don't know the basis for the calculation. Our evidence shows that the property was very clearly vacant at time of sale, and you cannot extract capitalization rate from a vacant, non-income producing property. More than that, I'm aware that after the sale, there was an owner-occupied circumstance in that location.
No, no other questions?
Please go ahead with your presentation. Oh, sorry, do you? Mr. Upton?
No, thank you.
Okay.
So now having been aware, or made aware, that there is a relationship, and based on the information the assessor provided, I agree. So I'm going to go over very quickly the physical characteristics of this property on our page 3. Very briefly, it was constructed in 1962. It has a reported wall height of 17 feet. picture on our page 2, you'll see there, and it's not unusual for this vintage property, you'll see there that this property actually sits on an elevated slab. So when you calculate wall height, ground to roof, you actually have a lower actual inside
Clearance?
wall height.
Okay.
And beyond that, when you consider the structural supports, whether they're wood frame studs or steel web joists, the property has less height than you think it does. Property has a single loading dock. It had an elevated slab. It was built in 1962. Clear ceiling height inside we think is 11 or 12 foot clear. It also has, as you can see on page 3, the building is set off to one side, butting up against the adjacent property line to the north. You'll see there that it has a very low land building ratio of 1.93 to 1. So you've got an older property built in 62, you've got low clear ceiling height inside, and you've got a low land building ratio. As I go through our capitalization rate study in a moment, those are all factors that we consider to contribute additional risk to this particular property. So we took a look at the actual lease in place, which I now agree we should disregard. But we have included a number of rental comparables, all of them in the West End. The first 8 are at 1346 Clifton Street, and the next 8 are at 1364 Clifton Street. I previously identified those for the assessor. These are in buildings with a newer effective age. You'll see there that they are certainly rents within the time frame that we're looking at. If these particular tenancies could achieve, there's a number of them on month-to-month leases, if the landlord or owner could achieve higher rents, you could simply turf out any of these tenants and achieve higher rent. These are the rents as of the reference date in these locations. You'll also notice that all of these leasable areas are smaller, and you'll recall my question to the assessor about economies of scale. If the space was to be larger, applying the concept of economies of scale, these rents would actually be lower for the larger square foot area of the subject property. So in looking, looking at the rental comparables on page 7, you'll see there a median at 474, average 474, median 464. We applied 502. If I was looking at this without what is now the non-arm's length lease, I probably would have applied $5, just based on all of the above. So our rental rate really doesn't change. I'm going to still apply $5.02 a square foot based on those rental comparables. 6% vacancy is agreed to, $375 per square foot for the shortfall is agreed to. The disagreement with respect to the non-recovered expenses you know about. The capitalization rate applied by the city at 7.7, we disagree with. And so we think that 8.25 is a more appropriate rate. So we have filed a separate document, the industrial cap rate study, and I think that all of you have seen this before. And so we looked at a number of things in here. We looked at what's happening in the financial markets, what's happening in terms of industrial supply, which forms a part of a risk for any industrial property. We looked at what's happening outside of the city. We looked at what's happening in vacancy rates. We took a look at, as the city did, at market reports as well. We show that on page 11 of ours. The city, or what the other extra thing we did is take a look at the actual benchmarks applied by Colliers and CBRE. And you'll see there the range for Colliers for the Q1 2018 For single A, 6.25 to 7.25, and for multi-B, 6.5 to 7.25. If you take a look at page 31, you'll see there the benchmark definitions used by Colliers for both single tenant and multi-tenant. These are what you would typically consider to be the best of the best. Newer quality tenants, investment grade covenants in terms of the leases, modern buildings. This particular property doesn't qualify in any of those circumstances, and so the rate has to be, we're looking just at the Colliers report, higher than 7.25. The CBRE similarly, we also show the benchmarks for that on the last page, page 35, and you'll see there they've lumped suburban office and industrial together, and similarly, you will see there that while it's older product, CBRE doesn't consider product as old as this. This is not an investment grade property. It is built in 1962. It is smaller in size, has a low land building ratio. It has very low clear ceiling height inside. And so based on all of that, and going quickly because I know you've seen this before, we conclude that 8.25% is more appropriate for this property. And so applying the $5.02 a square foot and all of those parameters, including the 8.25 cap rate, we're looking for a reduction to $654,000. I believe that's the information we wanted to provide. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have questions?
So, sure, looking at your cap rate study, would you not say that this is a single tenanted building, correct?
It is
Yep. Okay.
single occupancy.
And what's the cap rate that we're using?
In this case, I'm using 8.25%.
Okay, and so, but the cap rate that we are using is 7.8%?
7.7, I think is
Okay,
correct.
so isn't that like a half point higher than what the Colliers rate is for industrial single tenant?
Well, again, the Colliers benchmark definitions are significantly, for properties, significantly better. Newer investment grade covenants in terms of the leases,
Okay.
very differently configured buildings for both Colliers and CBRE.
Okay. So, looking at your cap rate study on page 13.
Yep.
Okay. Your cap rate number 4, Logan, which is also in the western part of Winnipeg, not very far away from the subject property. Original age is 1969. The subject property that we're looking at here right now has an age of 1970, so almost identical in the year built, or just right, 1962, 1969, 7 years.
Well, that's the year built, but you'll also see there in the next column effective age, so
Yep.
clearly it's had improvements
Yep.
over the years.
Okay. Either way, the leasable area is slightly larger, like 21,000 square feet. 20 wall height. You're using a cap rate of $6.
That property doesn't have elevated slab. It doesn't have, I don't show it here, I don't believe that that property has as low a land building ratio as subject. In addition to that.
But you don't know if it does or if it doesn't though.
Well, I think that I would have made a note of it, but you're quite right, it doesn't, I don't have that information in there. When we add that to the two remaining cap rates from the city's cap rate extraction from the city of 7.44 and 8%, certainly 8.25 is well supported.
So what you're looking at is you're looking, even though it may be slightly superior on a sales per square foot basis, you're looking for a value which is like 50% less, or almost 60%, 55% less than the cap rate that you've used here.
I don't think I used the term slightly superior on that.
Well, you said it was superior,
Absolutely.
okay. But the point is,
It
that's a
doesn't,
2% difference in cap rate.
it doesn't, let me just clarify, it doesn't sit on an elevated slab.
Okay,
So you've got very low wall height, you've got a much older age, when you look at the effective years, the subject property is still 1962 in the view of the city. I don't disagree with that from my inspection of the property
Yeah.
with Ms. Tang. And it's got a very low land building ratio. The west end, in my view, is not a prime industrial location.
Okay. So, you only have one comparable on Clifford Street, correct? On Clifford, you have only one comparable for a rental rate?
Clifton?
Clifton, sorry.
Sorry.
I apologize.
No, there are actually,
But aren't the buildings beside each other?
so the one is at 1346 Clifton.
Yep.
There are 8 rental comparables from within that property. And then there are 8 rental comparables from 1364 Clifton.
Okay.
But
But,
there's a total here, by my count, of 60.
but aren't these properties more like a strip mall than they are a single-tenant occupancy?
I would view them more as a flex warehouse type of situation.
Okay. But, but they're nowhere close
We're certainly
to.
gonna be looking at one of them, I shouldn't say that. One's coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, so. In fact, we are looking at one of these
Yep.
today.
For sure. But were you not able to find any comparables that were close to the subject property of 12,000 square feet?
Well, when you have rental comparables in the same neighborhood, given that the West End, in my view, is not prime industrial
Okay.
property, you're not going to find a lot of rental properties in the West End of that size.
Okay. But you're critical of the leases, the comparables that we use, but you're showing comparables that are not similar to the subject property at all. Isn't that a bit of a contradiction?
I would disagree, I've used comparables in the West End.
Okay. But not of the same size?
I would
Of a
agree that
single-
they are not of the same size, and if we apply economies of scale principle to these, then the rental rates here would be therefore driven down when you're applying it to the city.
But our comparable rents don't show that though, do they?
I'm not sure what your question is about your evidence.
All I'm saying is we provided market evidence of similar aged buildings, of similar sized buildings that are deriving a rent significantly higher than $4.74.
And that's really no different than what I've shown on our page 7, and certainly in terms of wall height.
And-
These have had some renovation, so the effective age is somewhat newer.
Okay. Is the wall height for Clifton superior to the subject property?
It's superior. I think it is, based on
Okay.
my observations. It's
Okay.
slightly higher. It is, in terms of industrial expectations, substandard, in my
Okay.
view. But when you consider the elevated slab of the subject property, yeah, I think it's slightly better.
Okay, so,
And I appreciate
Okay.
it that you weren't on the inspection.
yep, no problem. Yeah, it's just that 17, the wall height that we have for the subject properties, 17 feet, and all of your comparables are 15 feet.
Right, and so let me back you up again. The subject sits on an elevated slab.
Okay.
You've got a dock level loading facility, and you have to walk upstairs to get into the main level, right?
Okay.
So,
I think we've gone over
Okay.
the
Yeah.
elevated slab
yeah.
numerous times. Can we move on from that, please?
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Oh, what Sharon had mentioned to us in our valuation process, that all of our comparables had a wall height between 11 feet to 16 feet. Square height, wall height high.
I'm not sure if he's addressing his evidence. or
Okay.
his-
It's
Is
just,
that a question?
well,
Right now, we're questioning
yeah, I understand
Mr.
that.
Boardroom on
Okay.
his evidence, okay?
Fair enough.
Okay.
One last question.
Is it about his evidence?
The Clifton property,
Oh,
is that superior location than the Wall Street property?
I'd say it's very similar.
Really? Does it have the same traffic count?
Industrial properties don't generally require high traffic exposure, and you'll be aware that both Erin and Wall are one-way, one's one-way north, one's one-way south. Clifton is very easily accessible once you're in the West End. So in terms of location, I really don't see a difference.
Okay, so you're on record as saying, okay, fair enough. I disagree with that, but that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Upton.
No, I don't have any, thank you.
No
No
questions.
questions? No questions, okay. Great. Okay, okay, we're going to break for lunch now, everybody. All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are reconvening. The next matter on the docket is 1520 Wall Street. Please proceed when ready.
Okay, so the file number is 19-2214. Roll number is 1309606120. Address is 1520 Wall Street. The assessed value for 2020 is $1,436,000. The parcel use is INWWH warehouse. Year built is between 1949 to 2002. Wall height is between 12 to 18 feet. Zoning is M2 manufacturing general. Land area is 55,847 square feet. Leasable area is 20,252 square feet. On the second page is a breakdown of each section was built. The overall year built is 1963. So at the time of the assessment, the overall built in our system was 1955. So we have made the change to 1963 for the future assessment. Page 3 is the picture of the subject property. Page 4 shows that the property is between Richard and Notre Dame. And page 5 is the income and expense mailer. And so is page 6. Page 7 shows the sales history in 2013 for 1.3 million. And we believe the sales is arm's length. And page 8 shows the comparables for the subject property. We can see the rent ranges from $5.25 to $8 per square foot. And page 9 shows the map of the comparables in relation to the subject properties. And page 10 shows the calculation of the evaluation. So there are two portions that we break down. For a total of 20,252 square feet, we have a blended rate of $6.63, which gives us the potential rent of $134,292. And then we take 6% vacancy, 2% expense, and $3.75 per square foot for shortfall, which gives us $119,152 for net operating income. And due to the effective age in our system was 1955, the system generates 8.3% for the cap rate, which gives us a value of $1,436,000. So if you turn to page 14, that shows the pictures of the subject property. It's mainly a warehouse. And page 15 shows more pictures of the warehouse. If you turn to page 17, that shows the kitchen. The one on the top shows the kitchen, and the one at the bottom is the meeting room. On page 18 is the pictures of the two offices. And that's it. That's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Do you have questions for the assessor?
I do, thank you. So let's start at your page 2. And you show there, these are, or this chart is a reflection of the construction dates of the various additions to the property.
Yes.
And you'll agree with me that, as you inspected the property, that the layout is, you could describe it as hodgepodge? Okay, so you'll agree with me that the layout of the structure as it is constructed and has been added onto does not lend itself to easy movement of goods within the property?
I think it's pretty easy to move things around.
Okay. Did you observe a differential floor heights between the sections?
Yes.
And so, let me ask you again, you now have differential floor heights, you have additions, and if we look at your, sorry, it's not. You don't have an overhead shot with this?
I don't.
Okay, and that's fine. So, but you'll agree with me that the actual configuration of this property, your picture on page 3 isn't an accurate reflection of the sort of way this property was added on to.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand the question.
Okay, so you have an original section constructed in 1949.
Right,
And then there was a section added in 1955,
right,
58, 59, 1966, yes,
right,
and then 2002.
yes,
And as you look at the property, either from the inside or from above, you can see the different sections.
right.
So, the office space within this property is minimal. You agree with that?
What do you mean by minimum?
What's your estimate of the office space within the property? The area? Mr. Fuller,
So would that include the retail section as well?
there is no retail done in this property?
Was that the office?
Yeah, that's.
So, let me just clarify, Ms. Tang, you were present during the inspection,
Right,
and do you recall my question to the person that toured us around, confirming that there was no retail within this property?
no, there's no retail,
And
that
they-
section
and
is
so-
only for meeting room.
And so they don't sell to the public in this location, correct?
No, they don't.
Okay,
Just look that way.
I understand. So I was asking, since she did the inspection, what her estimate of the office finished area was. And if you don't know, that's fine.
So, out of the 20,000 square feet, what percentage is warehouse, what percentage is office? That would be a part of the office, that would be back there. So look at the office space, the kitchen area, you know what I mean? Not this, everything that's not this. So out of 20,000 square feet, what do you think it would be? 15%? Okay.
About 15 to 20%, I would say. I don't have the exact square footage for the,
And that's fine. I'm asking. So you're suggesting that there is in excess of 3,000 square feet of finished area in this building? 15% would equate to 3,000 square feet, right?
about that.
Fair enough. So the quality of the finish that you observed and as you showed in your pictures, that would be somewhere between fair and average?
Yes.
If we turn to your page 17, you'll see there are some displays. That's not a retail area, right?
No, that's just for
Yeah.
meeting.
And in fact, that was described as a meeting room where vendors come in, this company's vendors come in, and they show them how they can, it can be laid out, right?
Yes.
The building is sprinklered, yes,
Yes.
and has fluorescent lighting,
Sorry?
has fluorescent lighting.
Yes.
Yes.
And so the wall heights of these different sections, and I see in your chart on page 2, you haven't shown that, but the wall heights of these different sections, the clear ceiling height would be something less than that, yes?
Well, the range that we have is between 12 and 18 feet.
I understand that, so let me ask the question again.
Okay.
The wall heights that are in the original structure and all of the additions arising from the sprinklering of the building and the fluorescent lighting from the building, the clear ceiling height would be something less than the wall height, yes?
Less than that, less than
The wall height?
Yeah, well, it would seem to be that way, yeah, because when we're looking at the office space, like, or not the office space, the meeting room space where the kitchen is, you know, without being in the building, that seems to be at least 10 feet.
And so as you look, Ms. Tanger, as we inspected the property, can you readily identify which of the sections was built in 2002?
From my understanding is the, on page 15, the second picture, so the picture at the bottom, my understanding is that that section was built in 2002.
And so as we look on page 3, that is the area, you'll see there the structure with the United Sales sign.
No, that's not the section, is, okay. There's a, okay, so are we allowed to refer to his
Yep.
pictures?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's on, Altus brief, page 4. So it's the far left section of the building,
So that would be the southern section.
With the grade level loading there.
yes.
Okay. And that was, you show on your information, 3,000 square feet in size.
I guess.
And you would agree with me that the lease in place on this property is not arm's length?
That's correct.
And in fact, that was discussed during our inspection, wasn't it?
Yes.
So let's turn to your rental comparables on page 8. Now, 2091 Brookside, that's a trucking facility, is it not?
Yes,
And that's a shared cross-dock loading facility, yes?
I would assume so.
And so the subject property is not a trucking facility.
No, it's not.
And in fact, trucking facilities have very different land building ratios, very different requirements.
That's correct. That one has 17.95 land to building ratio.
And so you've showed 2 rental comparables from 2091 Brookside in your brief. And just to confirm, or let me ask you the question then, you show one with an effective year built as 1969 and one as 1974. Do you know which one is right?
Well, are they different buildings, Mr. Boardroom?
This is your evidence.
Okay, well, I'm guessing they're different buildings built at different times. No, I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Nevertheless, you show 2 rents in here, and do you know who the tenants are?
For which one?
Both.
For the first, hold on.
Yeah,
Okay. So the first one is for Clark Transport, and the second one is for
Highway Custom Warehouse Limited.
And 2091 Brookside Highway Customs is a client, so. These are for leases of cross-dock space, correct? Do you know what a cross-dock is?
No.
Okay. You'll agree with me, though, that this is a trucking warehouse and not a storage warehouse, 2091 Brookside?
For our perspective, they are considered as storage warehouse when we do the assessment.
I'm gonna suggest that you review that particular property. I've worked out when I've worked 2061 Brookside. They're north of East here, they're trucking warehouses, very different than the subject. So and when we look at the rest of them, you show a range of rents in here, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Two of them have significantly superior wall height. Let me narrow you down. So the one at 1725 Inkster,
Right?
yes, that one has 26-foot wall height.
Mm-hmm.
That's superior to the subject.
Yes.
And the one at 324 Salto has 24-foot wall height. That's superior to the subject.
Yes.
Is that something that would require a downward adjustment to the rents used?
Yes.
Similarly, if we look at the ages of them, 1725 Inkster has an effective year built of 1990. Even by your calculations using 1965, that's a 25-year difference. You agree with that?
Yep.
And is that something that would require a downward adjustment to the rental rate?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Similarly with the property on Salto, built in 1984, that's roughly a 20-year difference, yes?
Yes.
And also would require a downward adjustment to the rental rate?
Yes.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Upton?
Oh, just to confirm, I think you said the blended rate was 663. Blended rate.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Harden?
No questions.
You had,
Yeah, I do have one other question. As we look at your page 10, the city's system
Right?
shows two different leasable areas. And as we look at your table on page 2, do you know which of these areas applies to which of these buildings or additions?
I'm not too sure. But I would assume the 13,000 square feet would be for the warehouse section. And then the 7,125 square feet would be for the office and the meeting room and the kitchen.
So you already indicated that the finished area, which would include that space, was in the range of 15 to 20%.
Yes.
And so 15% would be 3,000 square feet.
Right.
Can you account for the other 4,000 plus square feet?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, because I'm not too sure how the breakdown is.
And if
with
you don't know,
regards to
that's
it.
fine, I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
it's just, looking at it, sometimes we'll have situations with different buildings whereby, but we have 6 different buildings here that were built at 6 different times. So the ones with the lower rent would be the more older ones, and the one with the higher rent at 7125 would be for the newer ones. But however, when we look at page 2.
Let me pause you there. So we have one structure or one addition in 2002, and we've already identified which one that is. Everything else was built between 1949 and 1966.
Yeah, I can't make sense of it, Brad.
Those are my questions.
okay, thank you. Okay, please proceed with your presentation.
So as with the property we dealt with just before the lunch hour, very, in my mind, sort of the same approach, same idea. We do show a breakdown on page 3 of the breakdowns of the different structures, and you will see there that there was an original building built in 1949 with additions through 1966, and then a 3,000 square foot addition in 2002 now. As you look at the 3,000 square foot addition, that has only a 12-foot wall height. So certainly this property, in terms of clear ceiling inside, when you consider the structural requirements to support the deck, the roof deck, when you consider the sprinkling pipes inside, when you consider the fluorescent lighting fixtures, the clear ceiling usable height inside is significantly lower than the reported wall heights in this property. And for the purposes of this assessment, the city has used an effective age of 1955. We show an overhead shot on page 4, and I know the assessor has referred to it already. There you will see the sort of hodgepodge, as I'll describe it, construction over time, various ceiling heights, various wall heights. There is, in my view, a minimal number of loading facilities at grade level in this property. There are no dock level loading facilities that I recall during our inspection. So we turned to look at the market. I agree that this is not an arm's length lease, cold lease code, and so we turned to the market. We have used exactly the same rental comparables as used previously. I am going to, for the reasons discussed previously, remove, or ask you to remove index number 17 as not being arm's length, the property we just dealt with. This is on our page 8.
Index number 17?
Yeah. And I agree with the assessor's conclusions based on the information they provided us.
Okay.
And so these are exactly the same 16 rental comparables. You'll recall previously I used $5 a square foot for 502. I think this is $5 a square foot. Not a dissimilar age. This actually has not dissimilar clear ceiling height inside. It's got a substandard or a low land to building ratio. And so I've applied $5 a square foot as an appropriate rent on this property. No disagreement with respect to vacancy rate shortfall. Non-recovered, we do have the disagreement 7% versus 2%. We do agree with the assessor's cap rate of 8.3%. Now, I didn't ask the assessor, but I could have easily, how was it they came up with 7.7 on the other property on Wall Street and 8.3 on this one? Similarly large age, wall heights, 8.3% on this one we are not disputing. And so we go through the mathematics on page 10, and we're looking for a reduction to $1,012,000 rounded. I have included pictures of the exterior. You'll see there that this property has, on page 13, has 3 grade level loading docks, nothing, and one, I believe, on the north side as well. We show a breakdown of the ages of the various components with their wall heights as reported by the city on page 14, and the city's income summary on page 16 and 17. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have questions for the applicant?
So, do you know why a person would pay $1.3 million for this property?
I don't know the details of that sale. Similarly, I never rely on a single sale.
Yeah. But would
Now, just hang on a sec. The other part of that, yeah, and so I do not know the details of that sale, whether, so Piston Ring has a number of ownership companies, including this one, and I do not know the details of the sale.
Okay. And you do realize why the cap rate was different from 8.3 for this one, from 7.7?
Well,
Are you asking questions
Well,
about his evidence?
he had mentioned it in his brief, so I thought
We're
he was
asking
looking.
questions about his evidence, right?
Okay,
I don't know why the city would use two different cap rates in the same area,
okay,
similar ages and types of properties.
okay.
I can tell you that if in fact this, well, just backing up for a second, if in fact this sale was on an arm's length basis, we would need to adjust the sale. One of the first adjustments you'll make is for motivations of purchaser, and you'll be, I'm not sure you'll be aware. Piston Ring has a very large presence in the West End. They have a couple of their main buildings on Wall Street, on Heron. And so this building being in close proximity to that campus, they would, no doubt in my mind, be a premium for this location. So that would be an adjustment that you would necessarily need to make.
Did you take this property on appeal in 2018?
I don't recall.
Okay.
You'll understand that we move through a lot of properties during the cycles, and I just don't recall.
Okay. Yeah, did he? Okay. No problem. Yeah, Sharon had mentioned that you did, so you just don't recall then?
No.
Okay. And so Piston Ring did decide that this was a good location for their business, correct?
No, that's not what I said. What I said was, I'm not sure of the details of the sale, but if it was in fact an arm's length transaction, we would need to, likely need to adjust for motivations of purchaser, because this property is in relatively close proximity to their other holdings, their major holdings on Wall and Heron.
Okay. And,
Multiple room numbers.
okay. And in terms of industrial properties, the Wall Street locations, same sort of, is similar comparable to your comparables on Clifton? In terms of
Those are,
quality?
those are smaller.
Yep.
And certainly in terms of economies of scale, you need to therefore adjust the rents in those locations downward
Yeah.
to reflect the larger of the area. But those are the ones I've used here.
And you couldn't find any comparables that were closer to the subject property?
These are on Clifton, they're very.
I mean, in terms of size?
Not on the West End.
No, okay. No other questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Upton.
Yes, what do you think is the office space in there? What is the size of the office space?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Is it?
I don't believe it's 3,000 square feet. I live in I've lived in a 1,000 square foot house on by level. I've lived in a not quite 1,800 square foot bungalow. I don't think that the finished area in this location is as large as 1,800 square feet. That's just based on visual judgment. I haven't measured it.
The assessor's suggesting 7,000 square feet.
It's not 7,000 square feet. Absolutely, there's no chance.
Would you agree with their 15% assessment?
If it's 3,000 square feet, I think that's on the high side, but I don't have anything to, I don't have any empirical evidence to dispute that.
Would 15% be representative of a normal warehouse type situation where 15% is off?
It would be on the high side. Typical office finish expectation is somewhere between 5 and 10% usually. And I think if you look at the Collier's benchmarks, that's what it's going to tell you. In terms of that, I can also tell you that the quality of the finish in there, even if you consider the sort of display room, is not what I would consider to be a high-end finish in this location. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harden.
No questions.
My question was about the office space, and I think you've answered it to the best of your ability. Okay. Thank you very much. Next property, 1578 Erin Street. Please proceed when ready.
File number is 19-3562. Room number is 1301-0504-200. Address is 1578 Aaron Street. The assessed value for 2020 is $715,000. Parcel use is IN WWH warehouse. Actual year built was 1959 to 1973. Wall height is between 10 to 16 feet. Zoning is M3 manufacturing heavy. Land area is 24,111 square feet. Leasable area is 12,103 square feet. Page 2 shows the breakdown of the building built at different times. So the overall year built was 1968. We're not able to inspect the inside of the property. So there are just the pictures of the exterior of the building. So page 3 shows the building pictures from the street view. Page 4 shows the location of the property. And page 5 is the income and expense mailer. Page 5 shows the expenses, and page 6 shows the income and recoverables. There's no sales information on the property. Page 8 shows the comparables for the subject property. And we can see is the rent ranges between $5.10 to $6.15. And page 9 shows the location of the comparables to the subject property. And page 10 shows the calculation for the assessed value. The blended rate for the income is $5.18. Leasable area is 12,103 square feet, and the total potential rent is $62,685. And we use 6% vacancy loss, 2% expenses, $3.75 for the shortfall. Gives us $55,023 for net operating income. Then we use 7.7% cap rate, which gives us $715,000 for the assessed value. And page 11 just shows the summary of the calculation. And page 14 just shows more picture of the subject properties and outside. And that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Boardroom.
Thank you.
Question.
So, on this particular property, as we look at your picture on page 3 at the top, we have an original structure with an addition, correct?
Yes.
And then there was another structure built in 1961 of 2,700 square feet, right?
1962.
It doesn't make a lot of difference, but city records would seem to indicate 1961.
Okay.
And that's neither here nor there. But as we look at the picture at the top of your page 3, you see there the units numbered 1345, 1347.
Yeah.
You'd agree with me that that is the 2,700 square foot structure built in 1961?
Yes.
And that has 14-foot wall height, right?
Yes.
Okay. And grade level loading, yes?
Sorry?
Grade level loading.
It's flat with the road, right?
I would assume so. wouldn't
Yeah, it looks that way, there's no ramps or
Yeah,
anything like that.
and we were there, right, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so, if we take a look at your page 7. Under the heading, subject property leases, it says no subject leases found.
Right.
Is that because the rents that are reported weren't entered into the model?
No, it's because when I was doing it, I wasn't shown how to find the
Fair
leases.
enough,
So,
In any event, you have included the rents on this property on your page 6.
yeah, and the reason for that is that, yeah, because they weren't, because due to time constraints, we're not able to net all these out with regards to what the recoveries are and everything like that, right? Was that your question?
No, I just
Okay.
asked if it was included in the information.
Okay,
Okay.
no problem, I misinterpreted.
So, and as we look at this income and expense mailer, they seem to indicate that it's both a net and a gross lease, right? If you look at the column, vertically lettered, it says net lease,
Yeah.
and you see there where they've ticked them all off.
yeah.
And you'll see there, in the following columns where they've also ticked them off, right?
For the property taxes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and other expenses.
And that's what the challenge is with regards to this, because they clicked everything,
Right.
so.
But as we take a look at your page 5, which is the first page of this mailer, it looks like the hydro and water expense in this property and the heating expense in this property it appears from that for a building of this size, that would be an expense that each individual tenant separately metered is responsible for, yes?
Well, there are recoverables for the administration fees, which I don't know, I mean, for
So
the,
what I'm asking about right now are the utilities.
right. Sorry, there are recoverables for the annual utilities and maintenance
Right.
expenses.
But if we're looking at a building that's more than 12,000 square feet in size, you would expect to have hydro, water, and heat more than $2,800 in total for the year, right?
Yeah, that's why we didn't use this information
I understand that, so-
for our model or
What I'm
such
trying
properties.
to get to is that when you consider that information and you look at the information shown on page 6, it appears that the utilities are separately metered and paid for by the individual tenants, yes?
That's what it looks like, but it's, when we look at page 5, if the mailers, was filled out properly, then we would have had a total for general administrative recoveries, utilities, and for property tax recoveries.
So let's, from that page, if the reported rents are not on a net basis, and you adjusted the rents for the expenses, then you'd end up with a lower net rent, right?
Yep, for sure, but they are getting some recoveries here that's listed here, so it's just,
You agree with me, Ms. Tang, that these, that the rents that they are receiving are a contract as between the owner and the tenant?
Yes.
And you'd agree with me that legally, that's all the owner is able to collect for the term of that lease?
would, that's what it would appear to be.
Okay. And similarly, any purchaser would be obligated to accept only those rents that the property is generating contractually, correct?
That would be one consideration. We'd also look at what was happening in the marketplace with other comparable rents.
So let's take a look at that. So all of these properties, you see there on page 6 where it says open, that's really just another term for month to month, correct?
Yep,
And so on these month-to-month leases, if they were able to achieve a higher rent, they could simply turf the tenant with 30 days' notice and rent it out at a higher rate, correct?
Yeah, my guess is that these tenants have been in here for a very long period of time. So
If they
it's
could
been,
achieve a higher rent, they could end the tenancy on 30 days' notice and re-rent the premises on a higher rental fee, if it was possible in the market, correct?
we don't know what the motivation is of the owner. There's lots of properties out.
Okay, you guys, I don't wanna, let's just answer the question as it is asked. I wanna get through this
Yeah,
today,
well,
okay?
believe me, I understand that, but it's just, Mr. Boardroom could make this a lot simpler.
So then let me ask.
He can ask whatever questions he wants, just like you can ask whatever questions you want of his evidence, okay? So just answer the question he asks, and then when he presents his evidence, you can ask him your questions.
So then let me ask the question again, on a month-to-month lease, the owner would be entitled to terminate the lease on 1 month notice and release it at a higher rate if that was available in the market, right?
I've answered that question.
I didn't hear the answer.
The owner could do whatever they choose to do.
And this property is located in the same West End area as the previous property, and that's why we've applied a 6% vacancy rate, yes?
Yes.
And the age being 1959 to 1973, you calculated as 1968 effective overall, yes?
Yes.
Previous one you recalculated as 1965 overall, yes?
Previous one? The previous property?
1090 wall, or sorry, 1520 wall.
1955, yes.
You recalculated the ages based on the years of the additions as 1965 overall?
1963.
1963. And so between 1968 and 1963, the model has come up with a rate of 7.7% for this one, and 8.3% for the other one.
Like I explained,
It's the model rate.
yes, it is the model rate. However, for the previous property, at the time of the assessment, in the system, the overall year built was 1955.
Fair enough.
Another consideration as well is because this building is smaller, that's why the cap rate's lower.
And those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Upton?
No, thank you, no questions.
Mr. Horton?
So the leases here are arm's length leases, there's no question of those?
I believe so.
Okay, then I have no questions.
Okay, so then on your workup, on your page 10, is this model driven?
Yes.
Okay, so even though you had the leases, this is model driven?
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you very much. Okay, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. And so I've gone through most of the physical features of the property through my questioning of the assessor. Turn to our page 7. You see there we summarize based on the information submitted to the city in their income and expense mailers. I believe that those lease rates are in fact met, that they do recover the expenses of the property. I have not adjusted these rental rates downward to reflect the gross rent. The final stage at unit 1351, if I recall correctly, we were inside that unit, and I stand to be corrected by Ms. Tang. We were in the reception area of that particular unit, and it looked to me to be finished space, fully finished space, which would account for a higher rental rate. So all of these rates, and as I tried to get to, as we looked at these actual leases in the assessor's information, on a month-to-month lease, the landlord would be entitled legally to terminate the lease with 30 days notice. Turf them out, rent it at a higher rate. That's not an option that's available. they are legally allowed to, but these are the rental rates that this property on an arm's length basis can generate. So we apply the actuals. In support of that, we do, again, we're gonna remove number 17 on our page 7 as not arm's length. The balance of the 16 rental rates all support the rents overall in a range of $4.76 a square foot. You'll see that at the top, the overall rate of all of the rents is $4.76 a square foot, and that just happens to be the average of the leases on Clifton Street. That's the rents that we are applying in our final analysis. There's no disagreement with shortfall, with vacancy. Similar differences again with non-recovered expenses. We disagree with the 7.7 cap rate and applying 8.25%. That's close to the city's 8.3 that they used on the last property. And it's consistent with what we applied on the property before that on Wall. So based on all of that, we are looking for a reduction to $578,000 rounded. And I think that is the information we want to go over.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Assessor, questions?
Is this property inferior or superior to the previous property at 1520 Wall Street?
It's different. It's similar in terms of age. It's not completely dissimilar in terms of wall height. It's of a similar vintage. The other one being a little bit older. So they're similar. This one I would judge to be a flex warehouse and not a storage warehouse.
Okay, so would that make it superior or inferior?
Different.
Okay, because there's only a 0.5% cap rate difference between your value, your cap rate used on this one and the previous, and the value that you're seeking. So we had 8.3 on 1520 Wall, which in my eyes looked to be inferior to the subject property that we're looking at here. So you clearly feel that they're very similar and there's no difference?
Well, as I think I've already answered, they have similarities. This one I would view as a flex warehouse versus the other one as a storage warehouse.
Okay. Okay.
They're both in the West End. This one's multi-tenant, the other one's single occupant.
Okay. What's the actual vacancy for this space?
Snapshot in time, I believe they reported 4% in 2017.
And do you know what they reported in previous years?
No,
Okay.
there's no disagreement with respect to the 6% vacancy
So
rate.
how come you're not using the actuals instead of and using the model generated one and not using the actuals?
Well, 2017 was a snapshot in time, and industrial properties will have sometimes zero vacancy, sometimes higher than normal. In this particular case, we've stabilized at 6%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Upton?
Yeah, your rents shown on page 7 are the actual rents then? Your actuals?
On page 7 at the top are the actual leases in place.
Is it market rents? Yeah.
Well, market, and so that's a very, it's a term that we need to understand. The Dictionary of Real Estate Appraisal defines market rent very similarly as it does market value. Willing landlord, willing lessor, willing lessee, each acting knowledgeably in their own best interests for a defined period of time. And so these are rates that are agreed to in each of these cases. In the top chart, if the landlord and or owner in this case could achieve a higher rent, they would turf the tenant and rent at that higher rate. That's the way the market works. All of the rates we show in the table below that, the 16 rental comparables on Clifton Street, similarly are all, excuse me, arm's length open market leases, just as the subject property is.
On the top chart, there seems to be an abnormally low rent for one largest space at 2
One abnormally low and one abnormally high.
And what do you account for that?
I did not have time to fully investigate. These are the reported rents.
It is what it is, that's what they're
It is what it
getting.
is. I did not have time to investigate. But those are the reported rents, and I'm assuming that they have correctly and accurately reported their information.
When you report them as market, it seems unusual that you would have a 288 rental.
Yeah, it's just what it is. It's what it works out to do mathematically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harden.
No questions.
I have no questions, okay. Thank you very much. And last but not least, 1346 Clifton Street. Please proceed when you're ready.
File number is 19-4233. Roll number is 1301-05-34500. Address is 1346 Clifton Street. Parcel use, the assessed value for 2020 is $766,000. Parcel use is INWWH warehouse. Year built was 1970. Wall height was 15 feet. Zoning is M3 manufacturing heavy. Lunch area is 23,623 square feet. Leasable area is 11,854 square feet. Page 2 is the overview of the property. This property is right beside 1578 Aaron Street. It's just one street over. Page 3 shows the income and expense information, and page 4 shows the leasing information for the subject property. There's no sales information on this property. And page 6 shows the comparables, and it shows the rent ranges between $4.95 to $7.25 per square foot. And page 7 shows the comparables to the subject property. And page 8 shows the workup. So this property has a blended rate of $5.64 at 11,854 square feet, which gives us a potential rent of $66,907. And we use 6% vacancy loss, 2% expenses, $3.75 per square foot for shortfall, gives us $59,968 for net operating income. And we use 7.7% for the cap rate, which gives us $766,000 for the assessed value. So page 9 is just the workup. And we are able to inspect one of the tenant space. So page 12 is the picture for the tenant space. So the entrance is it's like a office section, and the back is the warehouse section. And you can see there's a bathroom in there, and then there's an overhang door on page 13 for the unit itself. And that concludes my presentation.
I actually got one other bit to add with regards to this. What's really important when looking at the valuation of this property, I want you to look at page 6 and page 8. Because what we've tried to do as, when we've presented information here today, we've tried to be as close to the effective age and close to the building size. And so while Mr. Borgstrom indicates that his, we know what Mr. Borgstrom is going to present for evidence in terms of Clifford, but what we have here is when we're looking at page 8, all of our leasable areas are varied between 1,240 square feet to 1,550 square feet. And we got a range of rents, our average blended rate is $564, right? So this property here is on Clifton. Well, let's look at our comparables here. So we got Wellington, which is built in 1953, 1,860 square feet, $6. You know, that meets it's very similar to the subject property. Spruce Street, not a busy street as well. You know, 1,500 square feet, built in 79, $575. Aaron Street, we've talked about Aaron Street, you know, $595, 2,000, you know, only 10 feet wall height, 10 feet high wall height, $495. McPhillips, 1,700 square feet, you know, 13 wall height, 13 feet, 1965, $551. Richard, which is like super close to the subject property, you know, $6, built in 73, 1970. Clifton, really close by, another Clifton. These ones are from 502 to 725. So when we're looking at our model generated rates here, us using 564 seems very fair and reasonable because the comparables, you know, similar sizes, similar wall height. You know, the wall height here for our subject property is 15 feet. So within the range here. So if there's anything that's indicative of market conditions in the rents that we're using here, our 564 is totally justifiable by this. Not one isolated rent on one street. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the assessor?
I do have a couple. Thank you. As we look at your pictures on page 12, this is the interior of the unit that we inspected and really see that. The bottom picture is of the rear of the unit, and you see there that there are wood joists. You agree with that?
Yes,
And they support the decking, the roof decking.
yes,
And below that, there is fluorescent lighting.
yes,
And you'll see there between the fluorescent lighting and the wood joists are also steel web supports for the wood joists. You see that?
yes.
So what is your estimate of the clear ceiling height within this unit?
No more than 3 feet.
So 3 feet less than that?
Yeah, so if we're
So
having
if you
15
have
feet.
so that's fine, so if you have a 15-foot wall height and subtract 3 feet from that, that leaves you with about 12-foot clear?
It looks that way. Maybe the 3 feet's being aggressive.
Fair enough. And as we look at your rental comparables on page 6, I see that 2 of them, 1368 and 1376, are actually from the building next door, right?
Yep.
Directly to the north, yes? Were you aware that those rental rates are the highest in that building?
Well, we have 3 of them that are listed there.
What I'm talking about here are the second from the bottom and the third from the bottom. 1368 Clifton, 1376 Clifton, both of those rental comparables are located in the building immediately to the north of the subject, correct?
Yep.
So now my question is, were you aware that those rental rates are the 2 of the 3 highest in that building of 8 rental units?
Yep. But when we look at our rent comparables, we look at a variety of them. We don't just isolate on 2 properties.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Upton?
None, thank you.
Mr. Harden?
So if you look at your page 4 then, the rents listed are gross rents, are they? Or they're not reported as net?
Well, this is what makes mailers like this such a challenge, because they say net on one side, and then they're showing some recoveries here.
On page 3.
Um,
Says estimate.
Yeah.
I perhaps can offer some clarity when I get to my information.
Okay, clarity is a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to clarify that your income workup is modeled?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, please clarify.
Yeah, so what we have here is exactly the same owner as the last property we dealt with on Heron. So they have reported in the same confusing way. I believe that, as with the previous property, that the reported rents are net and not gross, so we've made no deduction from the rental rates. I believe that the reported is true net rents, and so that's the approach we've taken. Same ownership. So we show the rental comparables in this property on page 7. I'm not gonna get into the physical details, it's pretty straightforward. I've already asked about the wall height. We have, so the city's model has come up with 564. The actual rents in place in this property are 472 a square foot overall. And they range from the low of $4.04 a square foot on a month-to-month lease. If they could achieve more for that space, they would, to a high 550 to 551 overall, 472 a square foot. Now you recall, you won't recall, let's get to there in a moment. In the table below that, we also considered some other rents in the area. I'm going to again ask you to disregard number 9 as being not arm's length. But the other 8 rental comparables are in the building immediately to the north of the subject property. Recall, I asked the assessor, were they aware that the rents that they are using are 2 of the 3 highest rents in that building? And you'll see there a full listing of all, that's a canvassing of all of the rents in that property. And you'll see there that they range from 447 per square foot up to a high of 516. The 3 highest, 502, 504, 516, and the city has used 2 of those 3 highest rental comparables. Overall, when you look at the property overall, the average is 41, the median is 476. So the subject property of 472 overall falls square in line with that. We think that the actual leases in place are preferred, or should be preferred here, supported by both the actual leases in place and the rents in the property adjacent. So we've applied, or will be applying, a total of $55,896 in our valuation. We agree 6% vacancy, it should be $375 shortfall, 7% non-recoverable, and we've gone through that. For the reasons already canvassed in the last property, we think it should be 8.25% and not 7.7. The land building ratio on this property is substandard at 2.32 to 1. When you look at the picture on page 3, you'll see there that it actually fronts on Clifton Street and it's set back a little bit. So you actually have, in this particular location, the way the building is configured and set back, you don't have a lot of usable space. You're not going to be backing a truck into this location to utilize the flex warehouse, and so we conclude that 8.25% should be the appropriate capitalization rate. Mathematics on page 9, based on all of that, we're looking for a reduction to $560,000. I think that's the information we wanted to cover.
Thank you. All right. Do you have questions for the applicant?
How important is land to building ratio when you're dealing with, how important is land to building ratio when dealing with unit sizes that are less than 1,500 square feet?
It's going to be a consideration for any of the tenants, depending on their needs. You will have, in this particular case, you're going to have challenges with any loading that needs to be done. In terms of the rear overhead door that we saw in the unit that we inspected.
So
You're not going to back a truck into this because you'd be on the adjacent property.
is there, just bear with me for a second. Does each individual unit have a loading door?
I believe that's true.
Okay. And would there be a lot of semis being utilized for this type of building to unload stock?
Not in this location.
Okay. So you're saying that, so this would be an inferior location to some of the other ones?
It's an inferior configuration. When I said in this location, I meant the subject property.
Okay.
It's an inferior configuration in terms of the building setback from Clifton
Okay.
and the minimal space you have at the rear with the loading door.
And you know what the history of vacancy is for this building?
I think as we look at our page, I didn't include it. I think in 2017, they reported a snapshot of 4%.
And did you do any research on the previous years?
I did not. Let me just double check something here. That's confirmed on page 3 of the city's brief. There was a snapshot, 4% vacancy.
Okay, so, but you didn't do, so I looked at the history of the building here, and it shows a 4% vacancy. Would that be correct, fair, or you just don't know?
Using the same 6% vacancy allowance that the city is looking
Okay.
at.
But do you not see a contradiction in your position where you want us to use actual rents that's received by the tenant, but you want to use model vacancy rates? So it's like you're sucking and blowing at the same time because you want actuals for the rents, but you're not using actual vacancy.
Okay, I think we addressed this
Yeah, but it-
last
I'm
time
yep,
about stabilization,
yep.
we went through this
And
already,
you'll
and
also-
we understand your position on
Okay.
this, okay, and
You'll
we
also,
got,
yeah.
Fair enough.
And so
It's-
you'll recall in a property that we did last week, the vacancy rate for the 2 years preceding the reference date was significantly higher than the actual. It was in a range of 20%, and I adjusted downward to 15. Now, the board made a different decision. But in that case, I didn't use the actual adjusted downward. Similarly here, when you're stabilizing an income in perpetuity, this is the rate that we've applied here.
Okay. No other questions?
okay, thank you. Mr. Upton,
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Mr. Harden.
Okay, these leases are month to month.
By and large,
Would it be fair to say that the owner is accepting, achieving a lower vacancy by accepting month-to-month leases? And is there a trade-off in that regard?
and see, I don't really see it as as accepting month-to-month leases. That's what they can get out of these tenants. It's not dissimilar from the property immediately adjacent to the north. And the rates here, you've got 3 of them that are on, let's call it a term for lease. And those rates range from 451, 465, and 551. So you have rents that are month to month at rates, but you have consistent rents when there's actually a fixed term to the lease. The rents don't, in my mind, looking at this, don't appear to vary based on whether the month to month or for a fixed term. But the owner is achieving what he can achieve here.
Right, thank you.
Okay, I just have one question for you here. You speak about, just to clarify between your page 8 and page 9, your shortfall on
Yeah.
page 8, you're referring to
360 is
360.
a typo, it should be 375, and when you look at our page 9,
It does say
it does say
370. I just wanted
375,
to
and
clarify.
that's, yeah, that's the calculation.
See, I actually do read this stuff. Okay, so it's a 375? Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just, okay, thank you very much. We'll now close this hearing. Thank you, everybody.